Outside, the rain is pouring down. Ina is wearing her schoolgirl uniform. Holding an umbrella, she waits at the bus stop. The young girl quietly steps onto the last bus. Then she walks to a massive mansion. Upon arriving, Ina opens the gate and enters the front yard. She heads straight inside and punches in the passcode to enter the house. The living room is dead silent, devoid of any light. The light switch won't turn on either. The door leading to the front yard is slightly ajar, letting the wind breeze in. Ina calls out for her uncle, but no one answers. At this moment, she steps on a puzzle piece lying on the floor. Ina bends down and picks it up. It is a puzzle piece of a sheet. It has a twisted, incredibly grotesque face. The girl walks on and feels a liquid beneath her feet. Looking down, Ina discovers it is blood. The trail of blood leads the young girl to her uncle's body lying on the floor. His neck has been pierced by a sharp awl. Ina can only stand there, stunned into silence. She tightly clutches the puzzle piece in the palm of her hand, as if it were the opening piece to a horrifying picture. A while later, the police start swarming in to cordon off the crime scene. Everyone is bustling with their duties. Only rookie cop Han Sim is staring intently at Ina. According to the autopsy, the victim died an hour ago. Inspector Tae cannot hide his grief, as the victim was his superior. He was a precinct chief named Jun Dong-hoon. Han Sim walks around the house to inspect. He enters Ina's room. By chance, he notices bizarre drawings. He also sees an awl stuck in a pen holder. It looks identical to the murder weapon the killer used to strike. Ina is then called to the police station for questioning. Inspector Tae asks if she saw anything unusual when she found the body. The girl replies that after entering the house, she remembers nothing. The incident only happened a few hours ago. Inspector Tae has to ask about the timeline prior to that. Only then does Ina begin to recount the events. She left school at around 8 p.m. Then she took the bus and got home at about 9 p.m. Arriving home, Ina opened the gate to enter the front yard. She then entered the passcode to open the main door. From that moment on, she couldn't remember anything else. It wasn't until the housekeeper appeared and called Ina's name that the girl realized she was standing in the study. Ina recalled seeing her uncle's dead body. His dead body was lying on the living room floor. Han Sim, after hearing her statement, feels even more conflicted. He compiles the information and submits it for Inspector Tae to review. According to the report, Ina is the prime suspect because 6 months ago, the girl bought a set of 3 awls. One of them was used to kill her uncle, Dong-hoon. There is a 13-minute gap between the time Ina arrived home and the time she called the police to report the crime. There are no signs of a break-in or a struggle. This indicates the killer was someone the victim knew. The motive could be a conflict over dormitories. Inspector Tae finds this slightly unreasonable because in that case, Ina only had 10 minutes to commit the act. But Han Sim argues that if she took a shortcut from the stop instead of her stated route, she could have saved 8 minutes. Thus, 21 minutes is more than enough time to strike. Inspector Tae nods in agreement. He then asks the rookie to try interrogating Ina. Thus, Ina is called to the interrogation room again. Han Sim places the crime scene photos on the table and says, the victim did not resist even a little. Even though being stabbed must have been extremely painful. You know your uncle was stabbed to death with an awl, right? And only your fingerprints were found on the murder weapon. That awl was used to kill him. Word is you had an argument with your uncle about the dorm, and an argument over an inheritance too. Isn't that right? Ina nods in agreement with the questions the police officer poses, but absolutely asserts that the argument over the inheritance is false. Even when Han Sim presses Ina to confess she is the killer, the girl still innocently claims she knows nothing. Then she demands the police allow her to leave. Ina returns home and walks into the living room. She stares at the spot where her uncle lay dead for a long time. She lies down on the floor, mimicking the posture of her uncle's corpse. In her mind, Anna visualizes herself using the awl to stab her uncle's neck. She shows not a hint of hesitation or emotion. She even turns to look and flashes an eerie, haunting smile. After remembering she was holding a puzzle piece in her hand, Anna went to the police station. She hands it to Officer Han Sim and says, there's something I forgot. It was lying on the floor in the study. I think the killer left it behind. Time swiftly flashes forward 10 years later. Right now, Ina is standing at a very high altitude. She looks down at the water below. Then, the young woman hurls herself downward. She experiences the thrilling sensation that bungee jumping brings. This makes everyone around animatedly gossip because there is someone in this world laughing out loud with delight, especially while executing such a heart-stopping jump. But afterward, she still wants to jump one more time. The instructor asks why she enjoys bungee jumping so much. She immediately replies that every time she jumps, she gets an intense rush. It is the feeling as if she is about to die. That feeling makes her extremely exhilarated, and so the young woman completes yet another bungee jump. After finishing her recreation, Aina speeds off to the psychiatric clinic. She goes there to see her doctor. Here, she sits, laughing hysterically. She recounts the case she recently solved. Dr. Sung-do is far too accustomed to this. words. She simply sits in silence, listening and observing Ina. After laughing to her heart's content, Ina gloomily says, I never expected that I would never be able to remember anything, but I myself constantly dream those same dreams. I punch in the door passcode to enter the house, and then I step on this puzzle piece. When the lights are turned back on, my uncle is lying there on the floor in a pool of blood. The dream always just ends right there. Something horrific must have happened that night, but I have absolutely no memory of it. The doctor suggests that the amnesia is because nothing actually happened. In truth, she wants to try a new psychological approach because it has been 10 years and Ina just keeps saying she doesn't remember. Furthermore, Ina's defense mechanisms are worsening. Not only does she blurt out whatever pops into her head, she has also started playing the extreme sport of bungee jumping. Perhaps that is a sign of psychological regression. This condition usually occurs at this time of the year. Dr. Sung-do then asks Ina a question. You are still having difficulty communicating, aren't you? To which Ina bluntly replies, honestly, things are not okay at all. Like when I go out and do other things, I won't be bothered by anything at all. But then when I come home, I start thinking about all the details again. Truthfully, I don't want to return to that house one bit. After completing her routine psychological counseling session, Ina walks out to the lobby and runs into In-chan. He curiously asks if Ina is attending the upcoming exhibition. Ina simply replies she'll think about it and turns to walk away. Meanwhile, Han-sim arrives at a newly opened bakery. This bakery is currently very popular among young people. He queues up and then goes inside. Han-sim strikes up a conversation with the female owner. I heard this place is famous, so I bet people don't come just for the pastries. It's been a long time, hasn't it, Miss Jum-soon? As he speaks, Han-sim flashes his detective badge. I want to know what made you decide to return to Korea, especially after a long 10-year absence. And this chef here must be your husband, right? With that, Han-sim escorts the chef outside. He handcuffs him to the iron fence. Only after cuffing him does he take out his notebook. He tries to explain in Venezuelan. Everything is fine, so please just stand still. Then Han-sim turns to talk to Se-jun. Do you know what day it is today? Today is the 10th anniversary of Chief Jun's murder. Chief Jun was Aina's biological uncle. Why did you suddenly return to Korea? I know your husband has a criminal record related to drugs. If you're not busy, we can talk for a bit. Talk about the time the murder occurred 10 years ago, perhaps. Se-jun confesses that she doesn't remember much from back then. She only knows one thing before Ina left the dorm room. Ina had stated that she was her alibi. At the same time, Ina is nonchalantly sitting in the office. She sits in Han-sim's office chair playing games. She vividly remembers every habit of the detectives here. She even kindly reminds Detective Joe, don't drink more than 3 glasses of beer if you don't want to go to bed early. When Han-sim returns to the office, she immediately mocks him. A detective who hasn't caught a criminal in 10 years is also the one taking the longest lunch break. Han-sim just listens and calmly replies, are you completely unaware of your dorm roommate's situation? Your friend has returned to Korea. Hearing this, Anna looks bewildered and asks, so what did she confess? Han-sim shoots back, how could you not know about this? Haven't the two of you kept in touch at all? Ina doesn't bother answering Han-sim's question. She merely criticizes his clothes as being too outdated. Then, Ina quickly turns and walks outside. At the same time, Inspector Tae and Chief Hoon go to visit the grave. They visit the grave of the late Chief Jun. Everyone mourns a talent that departed far too soon. Chief Hoon was transferred to work at the Hanging precinct. This is somewhat ironic, because that is also the place he used to work side by side. He used to work under Chief Jun. Inspector Tae mentions there is someone working under him. That young cop is named Han-sim. He is the one who investigated this case 10 years ago. Even now, he still thinks Ina is the culprit. Anyway, every member of the girl's family is already dead, so finding Ina abnormal is also understandable. Meanwhile, Ina speeds to the Seoul police headquarters for work. She steps inside the elevator. She presses all the floor buttons for everyone. She even knows exactly the information of the female cop standing behind her. She was transferred to the social work department on the 12th. Ina enters the office but sees no one around. She immediately calls the captain to ask where everyone went. As a result, she gets thoroughly scolded because the captain had told them to meet at the crime scene. Ina then arrives at the crime scene with the whole team. She steps inside and asks why the culprit hasn't been found yet. Wook immediately replies that they only found the family members' fingerprints. They are the fingerprints of the parents and the older brother. This puts the parents at the top of the suspect list, but proving they are actually the killers is very difficult. This is turning into a massive challenge. Ina opens her iPad to look at the crime scene photos. She nods, stating she has figured out the problem. There are no signs of forced entry from the outside, and no one besides the family members has enough motive to act. Goen argues that no one would go and kill a 10-year-old child, but the killer was blinded by rage. He stabbed the victim frantically, over and over again, yet afterward, the murder weapon was wiped entirely entirely clean. It was returned exactly to its original place. Why would they do that? And what caused them to calm down? Ina casually answers, that's because of habit. Finishing her sentence, she walks into the room where the murder occurred. Ina begins to carefully analyze. The room is covered in certificates of merit and medals. The victim who died was an incredibly brilliant younger sibling. The boy was far more outstanding than his older brother. The older brother put labels on all the belongings in the room. Judging by the handwriting, the boy seemed depressed. He also severely lacked self-confidence. Older brother wanted to assert ownership over his property. The boy was also the first person to discover the body. He stated that he opened the front door and took off his shoes, then walked straight to the victim's room. That was when he saw his little brother stabbed with a knife. He called his parents to break the news that his little brother had been stabbed with a sharp object. After that, the older brother called the police. Out of fear, he left the house to wait for the police to arrive. At first, the boy referred to the victim as Junsei, but then started calling him his little brother. He also deliberately referred to the knife as a sharp object. Rarely does someone change their pronouns in a single sentence, especially a change without any reason. It is possible that subconsciously, the older brother is trying to escape. He wants to distance himself from the victim. He only gave a brief statement about the murder, yet spent a lot of effort detailing his parents' reactions. The death of his younger brother might be less important, especially compared to his parents' reaction when facing it. It's visible that the parents favored the younger brother more. After a bout of analytical reasoning, Ina tells the team, I'm guessing the older brother killed his sibling. I'm done here, so I'm leaving. See you all at the office. Meanwhile, in Han Sim's office, a newly transferred rookie wonderingly asks the bespectacled female inspector, was the girl earlier really a cop who committed murder? Inspector An immediately speaks up to explain, you can't be a police officer and have a murder record at the same time. She is a criminal psychology profiler, specifically working for the Seoul Metropolitan Headquarters. She is Lieutenant Jun Ena. Hearing Ana's surname, the rookie is greatly surprised, because that is Chief Jun's niece. Anyone in this profession knows how earth-shattering the case 10 years ago was. At this moment, Captain Kang walks up and says, our suspect in the internet cafe case has retracted his statement. He claims that he didn't do anything himself. The accomplice is the one who actually committed the crime. Now we just need to prove he has no accomplice. Lieutenant Joe and Lieutenant An will investigate the accomplice, while he and Han Sim will investigate under the assumption that the suspect acted alone. At this time, Han Sim receives a text from Anna. She sends Han Sim a shopping link. It's a link to buy a new outfit from an expensive brand. While waiting for the lieutenant to reply to the text, the teammates return. Anna immediately announces there is strawberry cake in the fridge. She has also prepared coffee on the desk. Wook always admires Ina's exceptionally good memory. Not only does she remember everyone's favorite coffee, she also knows what floor everyone in this building works on. Rumor has it she even goes around pressing elevator buttons for them. Goen argues that a good memory is useless. While she can't remember anything regarding her own important matters, Jun advises Anna to stop going around pressing elevator buttons, because doing so will make the whole building view her as a weirdo. Ina immediately turns to stare at Jun, because her makeup today is slightly different, completely different from her usual days. Wook interrupts to check in. Is it someone's birthday today? Why are there candles stuck in the cake? No one answers, so he just sticks them in anyway. He doesn't question it any further. Go-eun realizes today is the 10th anniversary of the case. She reads a message from the investigation team. Then she tells Aina that the investigation team wants to know when they'll get the report. And the older brother, who is on the suspect list, has spoken up. He claims that he cannot remember anything. This sounds very familiar to you. So Aina stands up, putting on her bag to go meet the suspect. But within a few seconds, she has to return to the room because the girl forgot to grab her things. Go-eun reminds her to remember to take every single item on the desk before leaving. Anna enters the interrogation room to talk to the older brother. I heard you can't remember anything. I also have trouble remembering something, so why don't we take turns talking about it? And so, Aina and the boy start taking turns. They recount the timeline of discovering the victim's body. When recounting alternately like this, the older brother begins to get confused. There is a tangle in his words. The boy also uses both past and present tenses to narrate. Usually, people tend to do that when telling a fabricated story, or making up things they don't remember. It's like constructing the crime in their head as they see fit. Ina gives the boy another chance to recount, alternately, but this time, he makes a mistake and accidentally mentions the kitchen. Ina immediately jumps in. Why did you go into the kitchen? How did you dispose of the blood-stained clothes? Because I actually already know where they are. Was Junsei really dead when you found him? At this point, the older brother bursts into tears. He bows his head and confesses everything. Having finished the job, Anna calmly returns to the office. No one is overly surprised. It is normal for the culprit to confess when facing Ina. That is also why Goen recruited her to the team, because there's nothing left to do. Ina also asks to get off work early. That evening, Han Sim, Captain Kang, and Inspector Tae drink together. They sit drinking in a small pub. They meet for a drink, considering it a form of penance, because 10 years have passed and the case remains unsolved. The late Chief Jun's case is still left open. Han Sim remains dead set on the belief that Anna is the culprit, because there's no reason an heir to a massive fortune would become a cop. She incomprehensibly chose to join the police force. She even became a criminal psychology profiler. Since they still have busy work to do, the three don't drink much. Before leaving, Han Sim even buys ice cream for everyone. After that, he arrives and stands at the courtyard of the school Anna used to attend. He estimates the time and reconstructs the memory from 10 years ago. At 8 p.m., 10 years ago, Ina left the school without permission. From the school gate to the bus stop is a 5-minute walk. The time was 8:08 p.m., 1 hour before Chief Jun's death. Anna arrived at the bus stop and boarded bus number 147. She boarded the bus 3 minutes later. She was the only passenger on the bus. On that day, there were 5 stops from the school to the stop near Anna's house. Nothing happened during this time. It took her 32 minutes to reach the stop near her house, and not a single person got off the bus with her. The time was 8:40 p.m., 20 minutes before Chief Jun passed away. Anna's house is a 20-minute walk from the bus stop. If she took a shortcut, it would take 12 minutes, cutting down 8 minutes. The time was calculated meticulously. That area has no security cameras and no witnesses. Han Sim follows the shortcut and arrives in front of Anna's house. At this moment, a police car pulls up and parks in front of him. They step out and question Han Sim, thinking Han Sim is a suspicious stalker, but upon learning he's a colleague, they immediately lower their voices. It turns out they had received a dispatch call because the homeowner here frequently sees a man. He keeps loitering around the neighborhood. At this point, the housekeeper opens the door and says, "I'm the one who called the police because a stranger keeps trying to peek into our house." Han Sim hesitantly replies, "She's probably talking about me." Meanwhile, a woman is chatting with her friends. They are sitting in a bar. She feels like someone is watching her, but she doesn't think much of it and assumes it's just a feeling. After the party ends, she goes down to the parking garage. She drives an expensive red car away from the bar. At this time, Na-ji and Chun-sun are driving away. They just finished handling Han Sim's incident. Chun-sun acknowledges that Han Sim is a truly obsessed maniac. Even though 10 years have passed, he still clings to the case. No wonder he's been working forever without a promotion. Na-ji pulls the car over to the curb. She asks Chun-sun to go into the store and buy a can of Coca-Cola. So he opens the door and walks into the convenience store. Na-ji is sitting, waiting in the car. She sees a red car approaching. It stops at the traffic light, but before the red light ends, that car speeds off. It zooms away at breakneck speed. Na-ji is about to give chase, but because Chun-sun is still in the store, she decides to let the reckless red light runners go this once. At the same time, Ina drives home. She steps out of the car with the pile of stuff she just bought. Just as she punches in the passcode to open the door, the housekeeper opens it first. At this moment, a delivery man runs up. He hands Ina a small package, but when Ina asks who the sender is, the delivery man says he doesn't know and runs away. Ina drops all her belongings to the ground and opens it immediately to check, and what she finds inside the bag is a puzzle piece, a jigsaw puzzle piece depicting 2 girls. Ina frantically runs into the house and enters her room. She takes out the sheep puzzle piece, then she connects it with the puzzle piece she just received. She hastily grabs her phone and dials Han Sim, but no one picks up on the other end of the line. Because she cannot reach Han Sim, Anna drives to the One City apartment complex. She goes to his mother's apartment. She wants to ask if Han Sim has dropped by. When Mrs. Hong says her son didn't drop by today, Anna bows in greeting and quickly heads down to the parking garage. At this moment, the girl's forgetfulness strikes again. Because she can't remember which floor she parked on, she begins searching throughout the basements and accidentally spots a red car. It is parked in the lot, still running. Curious, she walks over and presses her face against the car window to look. She sees a woman dead, motionless inside. She died from being chained by the neck. Anna immediately calls to notify a nearby police car to rush over. So Na-ji and her colleague drive into the basement. Upon seeing that familiar red car, fear suddenly wells up inside Na-ji. The violent crimes unit quickly arrives to lock down the scene. Han Sim receives Anna's message but doesn't bother replying. He and the rookie arrive at the scene to assess the situation. The victim is a resident of the One City apartment complex. Captain Kang, after seeing the victim's name is Mi Yan, he instantly freezes. But when Han Sim asks if it's an acquaintance, he quickly says he doesn't know her at all. Han Sim curiously asks who the first person to discover the body was. Captain Kang simply remains silent and doesn't answer. At the same time, Ina arrives. At the location the delivery man reported back. According to the delivery guy, he received a text message. The text notified him that there was a prepaid order to be delivered. delivered. The delivery time was at 10:32 p.m. They said the item would be in a locker in the men's restroom. Anna goes inside the building to observe. She learns that this place has no security cameras, nor can any fingerprints be found. The delivery order could have been placed using a burner phone. Anna wonders who exactly sent this puzzle piece. A while later, she sits at Han Sim's desk. She casually plays games while waiting for him. Han Sim, immediately upon arriving, begins interrogating. He suspects she is involved in the case, but the girl still calmly offers her explanation. I went there looking for you because I had something urgent to say. Finishing her sentence, Ina takes out the puzzle piece to show Han Sim and says, "This is a serial murder. 10 years have passed and these murders have started again. I will begin investigating from now on. I also wrote a report, so look it over." Just as Ina turns to leave, Han Sim speaks up. "Are you sure you didn't kill the victim and then call me? I bet you're the one behind this puzzle piece incident. Or am I supposed to believe everything is a coincidence?" Ina pays little mind and replies, "Think whatever you want." Then she quickly turns her back and walks away. Meanwhile, Han Sim picks up the report. He calls his mother to verify the statement. It's true that Ina dropped by right before midnight, so she has a perfect alibi. The next day, on the way to check the security cameras, they check the security cameras of the One City apartment complex. Han Sim still argues that the statement in Ina's report is too absurd. The rookie argues that everyone has moments of forgetfulness. Forgetting where you parked your car is normal. Besides, Anna's alibi is rock solid. Finishing his sentence, he lets out a long yawn. He demands to stop by a convenience store to buy food. After that, the two arrive to check the building's security cameras. The rookie eats while working. This makes Han Sim somewhat annoyed. According to the recorded security footage, the estimated time of death of the victim is between 10 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. But in the area where she parked, there are no cameras recording because that is the building's blind spot. Residents have complained about this issue many times, but the apartment complex hasn't managed to install more cameras yet. Han Sim immediately orders the rookie to work. He demands a check of all dash cams of the cars parked on level B2. No matter how many cars there are, you have to check them all for me, and from now on, eat properly before working. The rookie nods obediently and heads outside. Meanwhile, Han Sim stays behind, requesting to view the camera at the main entrance, and exactly as stated, Ina came looking for him. She arrived at that exact time. Captain Kang is going into the victim's apartment to investigate. After searching thoroughly, no signs of a break-in are found. Han Sim's team also comes in to report. Because the car was parked in a blind spot, they face difficulties. It is very difficult to check the security footage. Those rich folks are incredibly difficult, so it won't be easy to view their dash cams. Captain Kang then assigns tasks to Team 1. You guys investigate the MO, compare it with other ex-convicts, and check her phone history for the past 6 months. Inspector Choi, do your best to get the dash cam footage. As for Han Sim, he goes to the victim's bar to gather more information. Han Sim remains steadfast in his mind that Aina is suspect number 1, so he called the police dispatch. He requested the audio file of the reporting call, and so he sits in his car, listening to that call over and over again. At the same time, Anna hands the puzzle piece over to forensics, but they don't find any traces either. She already knew this beforehand. She just wanted to double-check to be absolutely certain. Before leaving, she also kindly hands out discount coupons. She gifts drink discount coupons to the staff there. Han Sim is still stubbornly focused on investigating Anna. He goes to the psychiatric clinic to meet the doctor. He asks if Ina has ever mentioned the puzzle pieces. Sungdu is equally unyielding. She strictly keeps her patient's information confidential. Therefore, without written consent from the patient, not a single piece of information can be shared outside. Ultimately, Han Sim returns to headquarters empty-handed. When Captain Kang asks if he's been to the bar yet, he immediately replies that it's still early, so the bar isn't open yet. So I am tracking the whereabouts of a suspect. There is no way Aina is the first witness. She is the witness to both murders. That cannot possibly be a coincidence. Captain Kang then says to Han Sim, do you think the criminal psychology profiler is the killer? She didn't even know who the victim was. Just track the victim's activities first. If you truly think the killer is Aina, then perhaps their whereabouts will align. Han Sim helplessly obeys his boss and sits down, but before the seat can even get warm, Ina comes looking for him. She trails behind him, asking for the reason. Why did Han Sim go to the clinic to snoop when he could have just come to her and asked directly? Han Sim stubbornly insists that Aina is the culprit. Meanwhile, Ina takes the opportunity to tease the grumpy old man. She says, you didn't find anything at the crime scene, did you? And the estimated time of death is reported as before 10:30. In my opinion, the killer murdered her. Then he sent me a puzzle piece. It's a serial killer. It has to be, because of the coldness and meticulousness of the killer. The puzzle piece has a picture of a woman drawn on it, and the murdered victim is also a woman. Furthermore, the killer's method is very consistent. It was an extremely clean murder. He executed it with high precision and concentration. But what is the killer's motive for sending the puzzle piece to me? Han-sim assumes this brat is directing her own play. She is writing her own crime novel. He doesn't want to hear anymore, so he drives away. Han-sim arrives at the bar to take statements. He takes a statement from the bartender. According to her account, Mi-yeon had something to do. She left the bar quite early. She didn't mention who she was going to meet or where she was going either. There are no cameras installed inside the bar either, because this place prioritizes privacy. Last night, 4 guests were here, and Mi-yeon spent a lot of time entertaining a man. Since Han-sim is a rookie, he still isn't familiar with the customer base. The bartender gives Han-sim her friend's information. Her friend's name is Dong-woo. Because she is the manager, she has worked here quite a while. After carefully writing down the information, Han-sim doesn't forget to take out Aina's picture. He asks the bartender if she has ever seen this person visit the bar. When she says she has never seen this person before, only then does Han-sim leave his business card and stand up to leave. He goes outside and checks the victim's call history again. He dials the last missed call on the list. It was a missed call to Mi-yeon, but who would have thought the person picking up the phone is Chief Hoon, the newly promoted chief. Consequently, Han-sim and Captain Kang go to interrogate him. They interrogate Chief Hoon. He states that he has been a regular customer of the bar for 2 years. Last night, Chief Hoon called to cancel his reservation, but absolutely no one picked up the phone. Han-sim began to press him with questions. He suspected that Chief Hoon might have gone to the bar, so he immediately stood up and issued a warning. Then, he lit a cigarette to calm himself down. Han-sim continued questioning. It is true that you called to cancel the reservation, but I discovered some whiskey bottles reserved under your name, yet you still dare to claim you weren't there? Chief Hoon adamantly stated that he was not there, so Han-sim had to leave a written statement form for him to write down his own testimony. Then, Han-sim quickly left. At this moment, Aina also called Chief Hoon. Meanwhile, Han-sim called the bar manager. He wanted to ask for more information. It was true that Chief Hoon had made a reservation, but he didn't show up yesterday. As for the whiskey bottles under his name, it was because of his close associates. They often chatted and shared drinks. The manager couldn't remember every single customer's name. She only knew the man Mi-yeon entertained yesterday. He had a rather muscular build. He could also be an inspector, because that person had previously come with Chief Hoon. Inspectors often come to this bar to drink. At the same time, Anna was sitting in a diner. She scrutinized the puzzle piece while waiting for Chief Hoon to arrive. The moment he sat down, Ina fired off a string of questions. Are Mi-yeon and my uncle connected in any way? I know you were the last person to call Mi-yeon. Chief Hoon didn't know if those two knew each other either, so Aina immediately drew a conclusion. So my uncle might have known her, but perhaps the 3 of you have never met. Finishing her words, she stood up to leave. She didn't forget to turn back and ask if he killed Mi-yeon. Seeing Chief Hoon's calm reaction, she felt reassured that he didn't do it. She then reminded him not to drink more than 3 glasses of beer. Only then did she finally head home. Ina went home and rummaged through her uncle's photo albums. She even looked for the case files he used to handle. The next day, Han-sim was writing down a list of the inspectors at the Hangang precinct who had visited the bar. Captain Kang voluntarily walked over and took the marker. He wrote his name on the board and said, on the day the chief took office, everyone went there together. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to cause any misunderstandings. Wrap this case up quickly. Start by taking my statement first. Thus, Han-sim proceeded to take statements. Taking statements from those who had visited Mi-yeon's bar, he gradually crossed out the names of those with alibis, those who were not truly involved. Captain Kang personally went to collect the written statement, Chief Hoon's written statement. He handed over the statement and warned, everyone must absolutely keep their mouths shut. If the media finds out even a single word, we are doomed. Your badges will be gone too. That night, Ina sat redrawing the puzzle piece. She drew the puzzle piece of the 2 girls onto a large canvas. Then she used her phone to take a picture of the drawing. It was unknown where the media got the news from, but early the next morning, they broadcasted it. The news about the death of a woman at an apartment complex, suspected to be linked to the inspectors of the Hanyang police precinct, and that they were repeatedly treated to drinks at the bar, run by the victim. Chief Hoon sat watching the news on his way to work. He got a worse headache, not knowing how to handle it. Han-sim, who was already disliked by other colleagues, was now hated by them even more for investigating his own colleagues. Even so, he remained nonchalant, not caring the least. He just went to work and handed out coffee to everyone on the team. At this moment, Chief Hoon furiously walked over and gave them a scolding, because by now the news had leaked everywhere outside, yet they still couldn't solve and close the case. He gave the whole team a deadline until the end of the weekend. Then he turned to speak to Han-sim. You dive into the case like a moth into a flame, yet you still haven't solved it by now, have you? Finishing his words, Chief Hoon left in a huff. At this time, Han-sim received a call from the bar manager. She remembered remembered the man's name, the one who talked to the owner that night, because he had kept a bottle of liquor there once. That person's name is Tae Dong-soo, from the Special Investigation Unit at Seoul headquarters. On the night of the murder, he came over, he drank the whiskey reserved under Chief Hoon's name. After that, he left. Hearing the familiar name of his senior, Han Sim couldn't help but be surprised, but he still drove with the rookie to the Seoul headquarters. He went to meet Inspector Tae to take his statement. Not wanting to make a big scene, the two sat in the car. They sat in the car to conduct the interrogation. Inspector Tae said that night, "I was craving a cigar, along with a glass of whiskey, so I just dropped by. I had an appointment with you that day, so I didn't schedule to meet Chief Hoon. I also know you two don't like each other, which is why I didn't meet him. After meeting you, I called my driver to take the car home, and then I walked to the bar myself. I walked for about 10 minutes. Miyeon said she wanted to leave early, so I drank exactly 3 glasses. Then I went home a little past 9 p.m. I don't have any other relationship with Miyeon either." Despite hearing the statement, Han Sim remained steadfast. He said he would send someone to verify it. Once the interrogation was over, Inspector Tae voluntarily left the car. Meanwhile, Naji kept being haunted by guilty thoughts, because she didn't pull over the car that ran the red light that night. So she made a phone call to Han Sim to ask and confirm whether the victim actually died in the parking garage, and if any other clues were found to prove that. When she heard him say no new clues had been found, Naji just nodded and quickly hung up. While Han Sim was still confused about what was going on, Captain Kang requested to meet him privately. He then said, "Both Inspector Tae and Chief Hoon have no proof. Neither of them has an alibi, right?" Han Sim immediately replied, "That's right, because according to what the apartment's security camera recorded, both of them arrived after the victim's estimated time of death." Captain Kang took out the victim's wallet and said, "It's impossible to enter the One City apartment complex without a resident card, but her resident card is missing from her wallet. The killer took that card, though I don't know what for. I think the killer might be someone acquainted with the victim." Just as he finished speaking, Captain Kang received a call from the hospital, so he quickly went outside to talk. Meanwhile, Aina was looking through a file folder. She was preparing for her psychological profiling lecture. Everyone clapped joyfully with all their might, especially when she began to speak. Aina clicked on the screen to project the profile. The screen displayed the Seoul serial killer. She started speaking. "I think you must all know the Dong-hee case. This case occurred in many different areas. Because there were no prominent commonalities, the police department did not classify it as a serial murder. So, what common point helped me identify it? On what basis did I classify this as a serial case?" The police officers started raising their hands to speak. One person suggested the commonality was the killer. He only targeted women. Another thought it was the crime scenes. The crime scenes were all in dark alleys. Anna said that wasn't the exact commonality yet, so he immediately added a hypothesis. Then it's because the murders happened on the same day. They all occurred on the same day of the week. But that alone is not enough to confirm. That isn't necessarily the common point of the case, because it still depends on many factors. Aina agreed with the answer and started explaining. "All the murders happened on Wednesdays, and there is one crucial detail that you missed. It is the thing that links these 3 cases together. The final piece of this puzzle is the spoken words. It's the phrase, 'Go to hell.'" While everyone shuddered in fear because of the phrase, thinking Ina was cursing at them, she continued, "Those are the words Dong-hee repeated over and over. He said it to the victims who were still alive while committing the crimes. I focused deeply on researching the word hell. I knew it was related to the church. Every Wednesday at dawn, that is the day the church holds prayer services, and the alleys where the murders took place, they were all routes leading to the church. The killer had a grudge against women who went to church. He highly likely planned the murders. It turned out that while Dong-hee's wife went to pray, she went on a Wednesday morning when a tragedy struck. Their son, who was home alone, died in a fire. The killer blamed it all on the church. He murdered women who resembled his wife. That made him think of his wife. Therefore, even if the MO changes, there is still consistency throughout the case, meaning the criminal's behavior has a signature trait. Then we can proceed with a serial psychological profile. But hastily assuming everything is a serial case is also dangerous, so we must absolutely investigate with very clear evidence. After finishing the lecture, Anna sat looking at the puzzle piece. She pondered deeply about the second puzzle piece. Assuming the main character in this puzzle piece is Mi-yeon, she has a very clear chain mark on her neck. The mark extends all the way to the back of the victim's neck. The wire was wrapped exactly at the carotid artery. He used the weight from the back seat to pull the victim. The car is full of signs of her struggle, yet not a single fingerprint was found. Perhaps the killer wore gloves while chaining her neck. The intent to kill is too obvious and cruel. He had no superfluous movements whatsoever. Not only that, he is very smart. He completely showed zero emotion. If it's the same killer as Chief Jun's case, then surely there must be some common point between the two cases. While thinking, Enna held a pen to organize the information. She wrote the information of Mion and her uncle on the board. Currently, the only commonality between the two cases is these mysterious puzzle pieces. If the puzzle pieces hadn't appeared, it would be very hard to say. We couldn't classify them as serial murders. So how to deduce the killer from here? How to guess the killer from this puzzle piece? A while later, Ina drove home. She drove in the pouring rain. She pressed the passcode to open the door and entered the living room. She saw the housekeeper sleeping soundly. She was sleeping on the sofa. Seeing Ina arrive home, she woke up. She grabbed her things to prepare to leave. Despite Ina's request for her to stay the night, right as the housekeeper stood up and opened the door to leave, the sound of the door latch echoed, and the lights began to flicker and die. The memories of 10 years ago flooded back into her mind, but this time, she sensed something different. There was another presence in the living room at that time. A shadow of a person was standing behind looking at Ina. He stood looking at her for a long time. Then after that, he opened the door and left the crime scene. When the lights came back on, Ina snapped out of her flashback. She immediately turned back to look at the door behind her. She looked with an expression of surprise mixed with fear. The next day, Ina dragged her red suitcase. She arrived at the Hangang police precinct and greeted everyone. Then she asked where her desk was. While Han Sim was still bewildered, not understanding what was going on, Captain Kang walked over and clarified. "This is an order from Chief Hoon." Ina began taking out her personal belongings. She neatly arranged her belongings on the desk. Just as she finished, Han Sim came over and demanded they step outside to talk. He asked Anna what her motive was for coming here, afraid of something being uncovered through the investigation. So Anna immediately replied to the cop, "Try doubting yourself. Only then can you find the exact answer. One thing for sure is that the three victims are connected. Those in the current case are all related to each other. Even my uncle who died 10 years ago. I finally remembered the memories from 10 years ago. At that time, I was in the living room with the killer. And yet all this time I kept thinking I was the murderer." Han Sim smiled sarcastically and retorted, "It's been 10 years, and only now you remember? It's not just you wanting to believe that you've remembered, is it? Feeling so cornered that your mind is in a mess?" Aina sighed and answered Han Sim, "I told you I remembered, yet you still don't believe me." Han Sim angrily warned Ina to watch her mouth, know her place, and then threw his cigarette on the ground. Then he turned and walked away. He went to see Chief Hoon to demand an explanation. Why send an acquaintance to the violent crimes unit? He just pointed at the newspaper headline and said, "Don't you read the news? If to you, it's just an ordinary case, then why haven't you caught the killer yet?" For that process to go faster, the precinct has mobilized outside help. Instead of storming in here, go find more clues. Han Sim didn't reply and just turned to leave. Meanwhile, Aina went to her regular psychological counseling session. She confided in Sung Do about her decision. She talked about how she is choosing Han Sim as her partner, as well as the fact that she has recovered the memories from 10 years ago. Sung Do, based on that info, posed a question. Why would you choose him as a partner? Does he know he is being psychologically profiled? Ina immediately replied that he probably knows, because he is also quite a sharp person. He is a person who is persistent to a sickly degree. Once he bites, he'll never let go. But every time he gets so angry he fumes, it's very different. He becomes a completely different person. But it's absurd, right? Something from 10 years ago and only now able to remember it. Sung Do explained to Ina, "If you remembered after 10 years, you should feel relieved. Besides, my diagnosis has never been wrong. Maybe you couldn't remember before because of a feeling of guilt. You felt guilty for not looking back at the situation, but at least you're sleeping well now." Ina then stood up and said to Sung Do, "Doctor, do you believe me? I don't entirely trust my own memory. Anyway, I have to go now." Finishing her words, Ina left immediately. At the same time, the team was holding a meeting to discuss the case, but Ina was nowhere to be found, so they decided to start without her. They would share the information with her later. Seeing Han Sim stubbornly show annoyance toward Ina, everyone on the team advised him to tone it down a bit to make it easier for both sides to breathe while working together. Captain Kang decided to investigate, following the lead of the lead regarding the victim's missing resident card. At this point, the rookie spoke up. "When I retrieved the dashcam footage, I heard about this. I heard an older guy, about 50, say the spot where the victim usually parked was his regular parking spot. But whenever a car parked there, something would definitely happen. Screws would be stuck into the tires. Otherwise, the car rims would be scratched. At first, he didn't pay much attention to it, but parking in that exact spot always resulted in vandalism, and it was a blind spot with no security cameras. So out of anger, he stopped parking there since then." After hearing this, everyone assumed the killer had prepared very meticulously. Han Sim said to Captain Kang, "I will go check the parking garage's security cameras. I will check the apartment complex once more. I will definitely uncover some kind of clue." With that said, everyone packed up their things, ending the meeting. By the time Ina returned to the precinct cart with pastries. The entire team had already left. She proceeded to sit at Han Sim's desk. She rummaged around and found a bag of photos. They were photos of her uncle's crime scene from 10 years ago. On the back of the photo, a phrase was written very clearly: being a police officer is a profession of saving people. While reading intently, Inspector Choi unexpectedly walked over. He asked what she was doing. Anna quickly stood up and talked about personality tests. That is Han Sim's personality test. Inspector Choi also played along, speaking as if it were true, waiting for him to be distracted. Anna turned and walked away. As for Inspector Choi, he also grabbed the case file. He took Mi-yeon's case file and left. Meanwhile, Han Sim was reviewing the security cameras. He asked the manager to zoom in on the car window, zoom in on the driver's seat of the car, then turn the brightness up high to see more clearly. Thanks to this, Han Sim realized the victim had driven the car. She had driven to the basement, in a state of having a wire pulled tight around her neck. The killer drove and parked where Mi-yeon's car had been parked. This is the only segment unrecorded by the camera. No camera along the entire route. The killer definitely got in the car here, but why didn't he kill her, but deliberately prolonged the time? Next, Han Sim went to the parking garage crime scene to observe. At this moment, Ina walked over and said, "You finally figured out the killer got in the car first, and then he came here to kill the victim? He's a perfectionist to an almost obsessive degree, just like you." The killer chose the crime scene beforehand, and then made his move. He got in the car, where Mi-yeon's car was parked, a place with no security cameras recording at all. The killer held his breath waiting for Mi-yeon there. But when the victim got in the car, the killer continued to wait. He waited a whole 35 minutes until arriving here. There definitely must be a reason for not killing her immediately when the car arrived here. In the puzzle piece, the woman is whispering, "During the 35-minute drive here, what did the killer say to Mi-yeon? And what did she say to the killer?" Only the killer knows that. Han Sim looked at the gift box in Ina's hand, unable to help his curiosity. He asked what it was. She promptly said, "Last time I came, I didn't greet properly, so eat dinner before you go home." Before he could understand anything, she hit the intercom. She called up to Han Sim's mother's apartment. She asked to come in for dinner. Even though he asked his mother not to let Ina in, ultimately, she still served a lavish meal. Han Sim sat beside her, just telling his mom not to pay any mind, because she is just psychologically profiling me. Ina then cut straight to the chase and asked Mrs. Hong, "Has he ever brought a girlfriend home, ma'am?" "Actually, I kind of like Mr. Han Sim. I've been pursuing him for 10 years. Mrs. Hong was overjoyed that her son had an admirer, so she spilled all the secrets. He's met girlfriends outside, but never brought anyone home. Bringing a friend home to ask for dinner, he did do. You are the second person to come here." Han Sim begged his mother not to continue telling the story, but Mrs. Hong happily kept talking. That was when he was in 10th grade. That day, he suddenly brought a friend home, but he had never mentioned that friend before. During the meal, his friend only said exactly one sentence. That sentence was, "That is so true." Han Sim even said the curry I cooked tasted like black bean paste. I didn't believe him, so he brought his friend home to try it. That was to make me believe what he said. That friend still occasionally comes here to eat. Once he grabs onto someone, he won't let go. Han Sim, embarrassed, didn't want to hear anymore. He immediately stood up to leave. Anna also bowed to Mrs. Hong and chased after him. She tagged along behind Han Sim, babbling non-stop. "Why did you say the curry tasted like black bean paste? Did you want to protect your friend? Is that why you always say meaningless things that don't suit you? Did you do that just to keep a friend by your side?" Han Sim confusedly replied, "That is a pitiful friend in every aspect." Anna proceeded to call Han Sim Mr. Curry and held out her hand. "I wish you would hold my hand too. The puzzle piece came to me after 10 years, and I also remembered that the killer was behind me that day. I wondered why I was the first to discover it. Why did the killer send the puzzle piece to me? It's because the killer actually knows me. That is why I created a psychological profile of you, because I am not the killer. Furthermore, the killer knows me, so I need someone trustworthy. Now it's your turn to psychoanalyze me. Follow and observe me until you are certain." Saying so, Anna turned and walked away. That evening, Han Sim drove home. He thought about Anna's words. As for Anna, she worked overtime at the precinct to analyze. She analyzed the connections and wrote a report on the link between Mi-yeon's case and her uncle's from 10 years ago. The next morning, Han Sim was bringing coffee to work. He received a text from Ina. She asked why he refused to observe her. Then she went ahead and sent Han Sim her own personnel file, but he just briefly skimmed it and put it away. Everyone on the team, after viewing the images from the camera footage Han Sim scrutinized was full of admiration. At this moment, Aina walked over and handed them the report. The psychological profiling report for the whole team. Anyone who finished reading thought this was too absurd to lump into a serial murder case, because at Mi-yeon's crime scene, there wasn't even a puzzle piece. No puzzle piece was left behind, and why would the killer go and send it to Ina? For thus, Ina began to explain, "I don't know the killer's reason for sending it either. If the puzzle piece hadn't reached my hands, I wouldn't have known. Wouldn't have known this is a serial murder. Sometimes just a unique characteristic of the killer, meaning a decisive signature trait. It can also be the answer. Both murders occurred in a private space, in the victim's private space. At a time when the victim was alone, the killer had selected the victim beforehand and found a crime scene devoid of security cameras. He had tracked and observed them for a long time. Once preparations were complete, the killer waited patiently. He waited for the perfect opportunity to arrive, and using the most minimalist method, he committed the crime in the shortest amount of time. That means he didn't kill for pleasure, but because the killer harbors a deep grudge against the victim. The special thing here is that the killer shows absolutely no emotion and simply executes his act of murder. These traits show a coincidence, showing that these two cases are a serial murder case. The scent puzzle piece is merely the final period. Hearing this, do you guys still think I'm forcing the connection? Above all, both puzzle pieces are made of the exact same material. Even the drawing strokes are identical. While everyone was still skeptical of Ina's conclusion, Chief Hoon walked in and angrily threw the report. Then he called Ina to meet him in his office. He also thought this report was too irrational and thought Ina deliberately asked to join the violent crimes unit. To continue the unsolved case from 10 years ago, Anna remained calm, asking Chief Hoon not to pay too much mind to it. After that, she bowed, turned, and walked away. Captain Kang decided to set Ina's report aside. He continued investigating the missing citizen card lead. Just as discussed previously, at this moment, Han Sim spoke up. How about we temporarily forget about the killer and start investigating the victim? This is definitely not an impulsive crime or a motiveless murder. Just as Anna said, the killer's motive is revenge. This point really makes a lot of sense. We have to know who Miyeon is to get the answer. At the same time, Naji arrived at the psychiatric clinic. She went to register for counseling. While filling out her information, the image of Miyeon haunted her again. That image popped into her head. Just as she snapped out of it, she gave Sung-do a meaningful look. Han Sim's team began to investigate the victim more closely, but almost all of her relatives had cut off contact. Her younger brother is currently abroad and hasn't returned. As for her father, they called repeatedly, but his phone kept being switched off. Han Sim decided to go to Tongyang City to meet the father. Captain Kang also signaled the rookie to go with him, even though he didn't want to tag along at all. Just as Han Sim turned on the GPS, he looked over and saw Ina. She was sitting next to him since who knows when. When asked where the rookie was, she immediately said, "Letting me go with you will be more helpful. You're going to meet Miyeon's dad, right?" Han Sim helplessly pulled the car door. He intended to call Inspector Choi to come along, but upon hearing that he was currently canceling his camping trip, Han Sim suggested the rookie just go on his camping trip. No need to follow him anymore. Saying that, he drove off with Enna to Tongyang. On the way, Enna wondered what the reason could be. Why Miyeon cut off contact with her family? Perhaps her dad might not have even heard the news that his daughter is dead. The two arrived at Mr. Im's address, but they kept ringing the bell and no one opened the door. Looking at the flyers scattered outside made it clear no one had been home for a long time, so the two went to ask the surrounding neighbors. They learned that Mr. Im had recently been taken to a nursing home. The two of them went to the nursing home. They were led by a nurse there to see him. She said that Mr. Im suffered from dementia, so she didn't know if he could converse with anyone. Aina walked past a female student, so she immediately suggested Han Sim go in to talk, while she would come in later because she had something to do. Han Sim went in and called Mr. Im's name, but he didn't react, while he helplessly went online to find a way. Finding a way to talk to someone with dementia. Anna walked in wearing a school uniform and said, "Dad, it's me, Miyeon. I have returned." Thought Mr. Im wouldn't react, but he turned around to look and replied, "You're back, are you? I still always wear the puffer jacket you gave me." This highly surprised Han Sim and the nurse. Mr. Im even complained about being hungry and said he wanted to eat black bean noodles because that was his daughter's favorite dish. Han Sim asked the nurse to step outside to talk privately. He asked who brought Mr. Im here because he wanted to ask for their contact number. So the nurse went to dig up the info and handed it to Han Sim. After that, he drove to meet the guy from the neighborhood, the one who put Mr. Im into the nursing home. According to his words, Miyeon had cut off contact. She cut ties with her father since middle school. That was after her mother passed away. 7 years later, she returned here to visit her dad exactly once. I heard she gifted him an expensive puffer jacket. Then she brought her fiancé along. But Mr. Im wasn't pleased and said that guy's appearance was awful. He said he would eat Miyeon alive. It had been too long, so the neighbor couldn't remember his face either. He only knew that the boyfriend graduated from a business school and then he went into business. At that time, Mr. Im also said Miyeon showed up looking different than before. She looked way too different, so he didn't like it at all. Meanwhile, Anna ordered black bean noodles to eat with Mr. Im. While eating, she casually brought up her uncle's name to see if Mr. Im knew him, but he didn't know and merely asked. He asked if Miyeon had broken up with that guy yet. When Anna asked what that guy's name was. He said he didn't remember. He only knew that the boyfriend's appearance was absolutely awful. That night, Han Sim drove back to Mr. Im's house. He saw that the house's lights were on. He immediately stayed alert, grabbed his gun, and opened the door to go inside. But it turned out the person inside the house was Aina. She came here to try and find who the man Mi-yeon brought home was. Han Sim thought that happened way too long ago, so he didn't know if there was anything left to find now. After all, she only visited exactly once 7 years ago. Anna then said, only exactly once? Then why did he say every time I see? So he looked through photos. Saying that, Aina began to rummage through the drawer. She found Mi-yeon's ID photo, along with a man who had a tattoo on his neck. The photo was quickly sent to the Violent Crimes Unit. The rookie thought that with just a photo, it would be hard to find the guy. Looking at it, you can't even tell if he's Japanese or Korean. Captain Kang ordered the whole team to ask around, because with such a distinct appearance, it's very easy to recognize. Waiting for the whole team to leave, he then stared at the ID photo with a deeply meaningful look. At the same time, Anna and Han Sim drove back to the precinct. On the way, she wondered when Mr. Im would ever remember. If he knew the truth that his daughter was dead, would it break his heart? Han Sim thought that no matter what, it must hurt. There is always a period of time where you have to bear it yourself. Knowing now or knowing later is just the same. Even being senile might sometimes be luckier. Aina then said, do you know what it was like after my uncle died? How I went through that period of time? Han Sim still firmly believed in his head that Aina was the killer, so he intended to wait until he was certain she was not the killer. Before he even considered sympathizing with her, Aina smiled and replied, so you still have time to think about it, huh? But I don't understand why Mr. Im kept asking me why I changed. According to him, the daughter who returned after 7 years had become a completely different person. Han Sim was also curious, not knowing the reason, because the neighbor also told the exact same story. He didn't understand the reason for saying she became a completely different person. Han Sim drove Ina back to the Hangyang precinct, then watched her drive her expensive car and speed away. Ina went to the bar and waited for Dr. Sungdu. Once she arrived, Ina started opening up. I never thought my uncle was someone else, different from what I knew, what kind of person he was, and when exactly do we become someone else? Sungdu then replied, every one of us will eventually become someone else. The important thing is what we become someone else for. If you want to know about the uncle you aren't clear about, then just follow what he chose. The next day, Han Sim arrived at the precinct. He called the bar manager to ask if she knew who the man in the picture was. When he heard the manager say she knew him, the inspector immediately went straight to the bar to take her statement. That man came when the bar had just been open for a month. He said he had known the boss since they were kids. He even sent his congratulations on the grand opening. At that time, he even ordered the most expensive whiskey in the bar, but it wasn't until a month ago that he visited for a second time. This time, the attitude changed strangely fast. He even wanted to borrow money, claimed that this bar was opened with the money he gave the boss. He even yelled that the apartment or whatever was his. The manager was about to call the police, but Mi-yeon told her not to, because he's the type of person who causes more trouble the more you provoke him. When the boss wasn't looking, he left a business card. With that said, she handed the business card to Han Sim. At this time, Captain Kang called and said, the fingerprint analysis results are back. That guy's name is Kan Chi-mok, currently in Seoul. So the team quickly gathered their forces, drove to the Chinese restaurant to arrest Chi-mok, while others went to his private residence to search. Han Sim's team searched the restaurant but couldn't find him anywhere. The other team searching his house also received news. He wasn't home at all. Meanwhile, Ina went to the precinct and looked at the information board. She looked at Chi-mok's info on the board, without knowing that at the bottom of the deep lake, there was the presence of a red suitcase. On the evening of the previous day, Chi-mok was driving on the highway. Then he arrived at a hotel. He angrily banged on the room door to be let in. The door had just opened when shortly after, someone was covered with a plastic bag. His head was covered completely, and he was dragged into the bathroom to be dismembered into pieces. After finishing the job, that person dragged the red suitcase out of the hotel, went to the edge of the large lake behind the mountain, and got on a canoe, then drove to the middle of the lake and threw the red suitcase, letting it sink to the bottom. Back to the present, because they couldn't find Chi-mok's whereabouts, the team began tracking his route. Captain Kang and Han Sim trailed the car's route. They found Chi-mok's car parked in the parking lot of a rest stop. Captain Kang noticed the car door and wheels were covered in mud, so he immediately called the forensics team for backup. At the same time, Aina was circling Chi-mok's psychological behaviors. Based on his impulsiveness and reckless actions, she concluded the suspect's psychological profile. This profile was completely unlike the killer who struck. In the two previous cases, Han Sim and Captain Kang were reviewing the security cameras. Last night, Chi-mok drove here. He went behind the rest stop, but fast forwarding until morning, he never returned to his car. car, and behind this rest stop, there's nothing but mountains. Han Sim stood looking at the high wall for a moment, then took off his coat. Then he took a running start and climbed to the top of the wall. Reaching the top, the palms of his hands were also scratched. The forensics team began taking photos and inspecting Chimok's car. Just like the previous times, the car had been thoroughly cleaned. There was no dash cam or memory card. It seemed everything that could be used for tracking had been wiped clean. Han Sim thought this was a planned escape. Just as he finished speaking, the forensics team found a clue, a small rope in the trunk. Han Sim immediately went over to check it because it looked very similar to Mi Yon's neck chain. At this moment, the rookie called to report. Chimok left the Chinese restaurant at 9 p.m., then returned to his home in Hanam, then went out again, drove straight onto the highway heading towards Chincheon. Han Sim was puzzled because Chimok's wife had said he didn't come home last night. The rookie continued. It seems he went home and then turned the car around right away. Less than 5 minutes later, he appeared again on the alley's security camera. He got off the highway at 11 p.m. and headed straight for Lake Dongbong. From the direction of the lake, he got back on the highway at a little past 2 a.m., finally arriving at the rest stop where you guys are. Han Sim thought there was no reason to be at the lake for 3 hours. If he wasn't fishing, he was definitely having an affair. So Captain Kang and Han Sim went to Lake Dongbong. Just as they got out of the car, the rookie called to report the last credit card transaction Chimok made was at Hotel Y near Lake Dongbong. Han Sim went to Hotel Y and asked the receptionist, but he didn't remember his face clearly. Only knew there was a room registered under Chimok's name last night. Han Sim went to the room and saw the cleaning lady tidying up, so he immediately flashed his police badge to conduct a search. Because she had just started cleaning, the scene was still intact. Waiting for the cleaning lady to leave, Han Sim began observing his surroundings, but when he opened the door to the bathroom, a strange smell immediately hit his nose. He bent down to look at the scratches on the floor. He found blood spatter that hadn't been cleaned up under the sink. The forensics team was quickly called to the scene. Seeing this chaotic scene, everyone was fed up, not knowing who Chimok killed and where he hid the body this time. Outside, the rookie was reporting back to Han Sim. Checking showed check-in was at 9 p.m. using the automated kiosk. The security cameras here have a policy of deleting footage daily, so it's already been destroyed. People value privacy highly these days, which is why it's like this. Furthermore, there was very loud music on this floor last night, so they received a lot of complaints, and at 2 a.m., a man wearing red pants dragged a red suitcase into the hotel lobby. Han Sim noticed a suspicious point, because if check-in was at 9 p.m., it means someone else checked in prior to that, and wasn't Chimok wearing red pants yesterday too? So Han Sim drove out to Lake Dongbong to take a look. He found drag marks from the suitcase on the ground, leading to the nearby canoe. While the dive team was called to the lake to search for clues, Anna calmly drove to Hotel Y to enter the crime scene to investigate. As soon as she stepped into the room, she mentally reconstructed the scene. Chimok definitely arrived here in an agitated state. A quarrel might have occurred, but there are no scratches on the walls or the floor, or dents, nor are there signs of a struggle. Chimok was subdued immediately, probably using a stun gun, but he isn't the type to prepare such things. Meanwhile, the dive team found a red suitcase at the bottom of the lake, waiting for them to pull it ashore. Han Sim immediately used a knife to cut it open. He found a body with all limbs and the head dismembered. Captain Kang immediately ordered the team to fan out to search for the remaining parts. At this moment, Anna walked over and said to Han Sim, "The killer must have the same taste as me. I also bought a red suitcase because it looked nice. You should know the two suitcases are of different brands, and the killer in Mi Yun's case and the body in the suitcase. The victim isn't Chimok. According to my notes on the board, Chimok is someone lacking self-control. He cannot control himself. The real killer in Mi Yun's case is very meticulous. He plans so well that he doesn't leave a single piece of evidence at the scene. Furthermore, he can control his emotions, is someone with high self-control. While Chimok is impulsive and hot-tempered, Han Sim still thought Chimok was the killer because his fingerprints were in Mi Yun's car." So Anna continued, "Remember the last image of Mi Yun on the security camera? Her shoulders were excessively hunched, both hands tightly gripping the steering wheel with an anxious look. That is an expression of extreme fear. She is a brave young woman managing a bar, and Chimok, although impulsive, is very predictable. Therefore, Mi Yun's reaction in the car at that time was the reaction of someone seeing a complete stranger for the first time, and not knowing what he would do to her in that situation. So the killer who murdered Mi Yun wasn't Chimok?" Han Sim helplessly asked. "Then what about the body in the suitcase?" Aina immediately replied, "That headless body is clearly Chimok. On the security camera at the rest stop, he was wearing gloves, right? Then why wear gloves in his own car? If you don't believe it, just match Chimok's DNA with the body, and you'll know right away. I'm done here, so I'm leaving first." With that, Aina turned and walked away, leaving Han Sim bewildered with the pile of information he just received. And exactly as Ina analyzed, Captain Kang reported that the body in the lake matched Chimok's DNA. In the end, the whole team had to go back to square one, and the man on the security camera at the rest stop wasn't necessarily Chimok. That evening, Ina curiously asked the housekeeper to see if she knew who Mion and Chimok were. Like, did her uncle ever suddenly change? So the housekeeper replied, when you were left all alone, right after your parents died in a traffic accident. At that time, he changed like a completely different person. Then shortly after, he quit his job as a police officer. The next day, Ina went to her psychological counseling session to meet Sung-do, to complain about that dream returning again, not understanding why. Despite knowing she wasn't the killer, she still dreamed it. She couldn't even sleep a wink. Sung-do suggested that it was because she still hadn't found the answer to that night. The fact that Anna wasn't the killer wasn't the answer, but who killed Chief Jun is the answer. Maybe you have to start looking for the answer. As for sleeping, you need to feel safe to be able to sleep. If necessary, I can prescribe sleeping pills. Ina shook her head, slowly refusing because she'd have insomnia. Either way, finishing her words, she went over to Inchan's room to see if he wanted to go eat sushi. But as soon as she opened the door, she saw Inchan counseling Naji. So Ina also voluntarily apologized and closed the door. At the same time, Chimok's wife was called in. She arrived at the interrogation room to give her statement. She was in tears, refusing to believe her husband was dead. Even when looking at the photo Han Sim showed, she also thought the man was her husband because that person was wearing identical clothes to her husband. The team had a headache because they had to reinvestigate everything. According to Chimok's call history, there was a spam number that called for 47 seconds. Unknown what that person said. That made Chimok willing to drive so far away. The images recorded from the security cameras, maybe those images were intentional. The killer did that to mislead the police, for the police to think that person was Chimok. Looking at the method of dismemberment, one could tell it was out of hatred. In the end, everyone divided the work among themselves. Only the rookie still got his old job, the job of checking all the security cameras. Just as the meeting ended, Ina brought coffee in. She brought coffee for the whole team. She turned to hand coffee to Han Sim, but he had already walked away, so she immediately gave it to Captain Kang. Then she tagged along behind Han Sim. She to ask if Chimok's wife knew Mi-yeon, but Han Sim refused to open his mouth. He just walked away, so Ina had to sit and rewatch the video recording the interrogation. The name Mi-yeon is so familiar, yet when asked about it, the wife replied decisively right away that she didn't know. After watching, Ina went all the way to her house. She sought out the wife named Jung-hee. She introduced herself as a profiler, here to take a statement. As soon as she stepped into the house, she asked directly, "The first time you heard your husband mention Mi-yeon, when was it?" This surprised Jung-hee greatly, but she still answered, "I only ever heard him ask one question. The apartment he gave Mi-yeon back then. Know how much that apartment is worth now? When preparing our newlywed home, he kept regretting it endlessly. That was the only time I heard Mi-yeon's name mentioned. But why do you keep asking about that woman? How do you know I knew that dead woman? I was afraid of the hassle, which is why I lied to the police." Ina said, "Because that is my profession." Criminal psychology profiler Jang Hee immediately showed interest. She invited Ina to stay for coffee. At the same time, Han Sim arrived at the restaurant. He came to take statements from the staff. According to him, yesterday the boss met a golf buddy at the restaurant. After that group of friends left, the boss seemed a bit agitated. He threw a liquor bottle at the wall and caused a huge scene, but his temper has always been hot like that, so the staff didn't find it strange anymore. After that, no one else dropped by the restaurant. At exactly 9 p.m., the boss called a driver to go home. After making coffee, Jung-hee brought it over. She brought it over for Anna to taste. With just one sip, she immediately knew this skill was only learned 6 months ago. This made Jung-hee even more fascinated and said, "It's true that I only learned it 6 months ago. Our nails are also the same. What else do you know?" Ina stood up, looking around as she spoke. "You and your husband don't share a room, do you?" Jung-hee immediately replied, "That is correct, because I really hate having someone next to me when I sleep, having someone lying right next to me breathing. So ever since we got married, we've slept separately. My husband couldn't understand this, because he likes doing everything together." "And since when have you had your own room?" Anna calmly said, "She is the child of a doctor, so since she was little, she had her own room." This made Jang-hee very jealous, because not only did she have her own room, but Ina was also very talented. She is even a psychological profiler. Ina continued asking, "You've lost a loved one before, right? Because when investigated by the police, you didn't show any stress. Perhaps it's because you were too used to it." Jung-hee increasingly admired Ina and answered, "When I was 13, my house caught fire. My grandmother and sister died at that time. Do you know what day the next day was? The next day was our moving day. The new house had 2 rooms, but I didn't have a room. I didn't have my own room. You seem to have lost a loved one too, haven't you? Because we have identical eyes, Ina nodded, recounting the loss of her parents. Her parents died in a traffic accident. Then she quickly stood up to leave. Before leaving, Jung-hee even reached out her hand. She reached out her hand and said, I am very happy today, so I hope later on, hope we will meet again later. Ina remained silent, not replying a word. She just shook hands with Jung-hee. The next day, Ina brought pastries. She brought them to the psychological profiling office. As soon as she arrived, everyone was joyful. They were joyful because their teammate had returned. Anna observed Wook for a moment and knew right away. She knew he smelled strange. Maybe he even went somewhere yesterday. Went somewhere and didn't go home. Jun immediately changed the subject, switching to the new case to divert Ina's attention. So after compiling the information, Ina compiled the information onto the board. Ina began to role-play herself from the killer's perspective and let the others ask probing questions. Through those questions, the killer's reasoning was somewhat uncovered. The reason behind each of the killer's actions. The killer is someone Chimok knows, but they are not afraid of becoming a suspect because the police are frantically looking for that other man, the man on the security camera. And that man is not a hired thug, but simply someone the killer thought wouldn't betray them. The motive for the crime is simply for one reason, because they wanted to remove Chimok from their sight, because the killer had inherently lived like that for a long time, and this isn't the first time committing a crime. Thanks to that, they clearly knew what the police would do. The killer had also never been to that hotel. Chimok inherently couldn't stand this, others touching his things, so he wouldn't be able to restrain himself. He wouldn't be able to restrain himself and would angrily seek them out. Go-un figured out the killer was a woman, so she immediately switched to asking another question, asking how the killer committed the crime, and how the killer felt at that time. Ina started reenacting that scene. The scene of Chimok banging on the door loudly in anger and saying, he banged on the door, then opened it and walked in. From behind, I pressed a stun gun to the back of his neck. This made him fall immediately. After that, put a plastic bag over his head, covered it until he suffocated. Then after that, dragged him into the bathroom to dismember him. It was all directed by me. He was no longer breathing beside me. It felt truly very satisfying. At this moment, Wook spoke up and said, compared to the common traits of female killers, this case is slightly different. Usually they would use poison or use drugs to kill. Go-un immediately replied to Wook. Recently, the methods have changed. The motives for crimes have also changed a lot. They are bolder and more proactive in covering their tracks, like the case of murdering the ex-husband at the Gapyeong villa. The recent case even used sleeping pills, used both sleeping pills and a murder weapon. Traces of the body also couldn't be found. Anna just smiled and said, then how are you going to catch me? Meanwhile, Han Sim was also pondering his wife's statement, because Jang-hee said her husband didn't come home that night. Han Sim also watched a video clip, a video from the driver who took Chimok home that night, and clearly saw that he did arrive home while thinking. Aina called, but he didn't want to pick up. Aina was standing in front of Han Sim's door. She stood looking around. After studying for a bit, she tried entering the door. Passcode. She tried repeatedly, but it was still incorrect. She then tried entering the date of the case from 10 years ago, and unexpectedly, it was actually correct. So Anna immediately opened the door and walked into the house. She went inside looking around. She looked at Han Sim's pile of detective books, as well as the photo of his dad on the table. While looking over the case information summary board, she heard the sound of the door opening. Han Sim walked into the house, unable to help his bewildered to see Anna inside his house, while she still nonchalantly asked if he had honey in the house to eat with pizza. She just sat devouring the pizza she brought along. Then she asked Han Sim why he set his passcode like that. Why set the house passcode like that? Han Sim helplessly uttered a sentence. Do you know this is illegal trespassing? Ina immediately said, you and I have something in common now. We finally have something in common. My house passcode is also the day my uncle died. To you, that was your first case, and the only unsolved case. Finishing her words, Anna picked up the photo of Han Sim's dad. Was your dad a cop? Because it's not written in your personnel file? Han Sim immediately replied to Ina. Unfortunately, you guessed wrong this time, because my dad wasn't a police officer. He was an actor. So when filming the Red Light District movie, he played the role of a criminal detective. Ina proceeded to walk over to the information board. She picked up a photo and said, what is the usual reason a wife kills her husband? I went to meet Chimok's wife to ask if she knew Miyeon, but there's something slightly strange about her attitude, because when telling the story of her grandmother and sister dying, she didn't show any sadness at all. But when she said she didn't have her own room, she became sad. She even showed signs of anger. She didn't ask at all about her husband's death. Even though she is someone who cannot stand curiosity, perhaps it's because she knows the answer, which is why she doesn't have the normal reaction of someone losing a loved one. Han Sim thought Anna also acted the exact same way. Ina also said, that's why we have the same suitcase. That's why we bought the same suitcase. And she won't confess. Hansim didn't believe it and decided on one thing. Tomorrow I will call Jang-hee in for interrogation. Thus, Chi-mok's wife was called to the interrogation room. She was called in to give her statement. This time, Aina also stood in the room to observe. When Hansim asked about the man on the security camera, this time Jang-hee immediately said she didn't know. And when watching the video showing Chi-mok coming home that night, she immediately said she slept very soundly that night, so she was completely unaware. Hansim cut straight to the point and said, that whole night your phone was turned off until the next morning. Were you having an affair with someone else behind your husband's back? Jang-hee nonchalantly admitted she was seeing 3 or 4 people. The most recent one she broke up with a month ago. This made even Aina gasp in surprise. Gasp because she was too bold. Jang-hee immediately shifted the direction of suspicion onto him. She said to Hansim, could it possibly be him? Because I demanded to break up? What if he held a grudge? I just think so, because he once asked a question, asked if my husband died. Could he take his place? Could he take over that position? If you don't mind, do you want to try meeting him? So Hansim went to the tennis court to meet that man. The man Jang-hee had mentioned. Jae-wook admitted to seeing Jang-hee, and they broke up a month ago. Seeing him have tape on the palm of his hand, Hansim asked him to hold his hand out to see. Jae-wook held his hand out and said, I often fall while playing tennis, so I got injured, but you'd be better off asking Jang-hee about this. Once, she asked me a question. If my husband dies, could I take his place? Could I take over that position? Just as he finished speaking, the alarm rang. Jae-wook had to go inside because it was time for his next class, waiting for him to leave. Hansim finally looked at the wound. He looked at the wound on the palm of his own hand. Then he said to the rookie, the two of them are accomplices. According to the investigation, both were classmates. Classmates in high school. They reunited a year ago when Jang-hee signed up for the tennis club. It's true they broke up a month ago, and they cut off all contact very suspiciously. Didn't call back even once, as if it had been planned beforehand. Even though Chi-mok's insurance money isn't much, the restaurant's revenue is already substantial enough. Maybe he recently discovered his wife having an affair, which is why he made a huge fuss. The two of them were pressured, which is why they acted. The motives and circumstances are all present. Now we just lack concrete evidence. Anna immediately spoke up. We must take statements from both of them. Right now, it seems to be a strategy of blaming each other, so we have to create a rift. So deliberately letting the security camera record. That was definitely Jang-hee's idea. Putting the body in a red suitcase was the same. The act of erasing traces and fabricating evidence that reflects the killer's personality. Jang-hee is very good at disguising herself, so who will be more easily swayed, and who will be the one to confess first? After that, Jae-wook was called to the interrogation room. Hansim asked how much he knew about Jang-hee, so Jae-wook proceeded to tell about the fire years ago, the fire that caused her to lose both her grandmother and sister. At this point, Hansim spoke up again. That was not a fire, but an arson case where the culprit wasn't caught. Jang-hee was only 13 years old at the time, and having just lost her loved ones, no one suspected anything. At that time, there was also a suspect. A suspect put in the crosshairs was a 15-year-old middle school student, the person who lived in the house next door. Do you know what happened to that student now? That person has been missing until now, and the police still haven't found that person. You should know this, because you yourself could also fall into that situation. Jang-hee is also being interrogated in the room next door. She is currently asserting one thing, asserting you are the one who killed Chi-mok. While the atmosphere in this room was extremely tense, Jang-hee's room was filled with laughter. Ina recounted the story of being suspected as the killer in her uncle's case 10 years ago, and mentioned the suitcase recovered from the lake, the suitcase that looked very much like hers. Hearing this, Jang-hee immediately asked which suitcase, but Ina still calmly asked a question, asked where her suitcase currently was. This caused Jang-hee to start becoming flustered. Hansim then placed the photo of the red suitcase on the table. He then said, this suitcase was found at the bottom of the lake 3 months ago. Jang-hee bought a red suitcase, and it was determined to be of the exact same type, the same type as this suitcase. There is even a credit card transaction history. I think I have said everything that needs to be said. Jae-wook stood up trembling, intending to leave, but Hansim immediately spoke up again. Don't you think staying here will be safer? Were you there when Jang-hee dismembered the body? To date, those who have been involved with Jang-hee, not a single one is still alive. Memories of that night gradually returned to Jae-wook's mind. He remembered the scene of watching Jang-hee eagerly dismember the body. While he couldn't stop vomiting, Hansim continued his rapid-fire questioning, pushing Jae-wook into a corner, making him unable to bear it any longer. He vomited right on the spot. Ultimately, the police also found the bags containing the remaining body parts, buried in the area behind the mountain. Information about Chi-mok's case was broadcast everywhere on the news station. stations. The human dismemberment case at Lake Dongbong and the bar owner murder case are linked together. Since the case was closed, Anna bought detective hats as a gift for the whole team, gifted to the violent crimes unit before she said goodbye. Captain Kang returned the gift because he didn't want to accept it, so the other members immediately said, just take it. If anything, you can give it back later, Ina. Whatever you want as a gift, just say it. Ina immediately replied, I don't want anything. But there is one thing I want to say. This case is still not over. The person who killed Miyeon was not Jang Hee, nor was it Chimok. So everyone try to think carefully. With that, Ina dragged her suitcase and left. Amidst everyone's bewilderment, just as she put her suitcase into the trunk, Han Sim walked over and asked, who is the real killer? So Ina immediately spoke vaguely. I'm not clear on that myself, because everyone around me, except for you, I consider a suspect. Han Sim thought Ina already knew, but she was deliberately hiding herself. So Ina just shook her head, then she quickly drove away. She went to the bar to confide in Sung-do. I momentarily paused because of our shared traits. The fact that our parents died early in accidents when we were young, those circumstances are identical. I asked myself if I have a habit of disguising myself like Jang Hee. When I held her hand, I remembered a movie I watched when I was young. In that movie, the main character talks about the killer, a killer like the one I'm investigating right now. Growing up in the same house, he went out the back door, while I went out the front door. Jang Hee didn't kill for love, not because she wanted to live with her lover, no, but simply because she wanted her own space, a larger space, which is why she chose marriage. But conversely, her space was invaded by her husband, so she decided to remove that obstacle, just like killing her grandmother and sister when she was 13. Sung-do immediately replied, no way, because in my eyes, Aina is very pure. The fact that you went out the front door is what matters. As for the psychology of that killer, it's too difficult, so Aina will have to find the answer herself. After finishing the conversation, she drove back home. She found a small package that had appeared in her mailbox. A small yellow package. Ina hurriedly took the package and opened it to look. She found a puzzle piece with a drawing of a man. The person had messy red lines drawn all over his body. Anna stood frozen, unable to believe her eyes. She hastily went inside the house, took the remaining 2 puzzle pieces out of the box, and connected them to the piece she just received. Ina started to feel confused, not knowing who the real killer in Chimok's case was. If the killer was Jang Hee, then why did she receive the 3rd puzzle piece? The next day, Goen had just arrived at the office, saw Aina sitting absent-mindedly. Aina showed Goen the puzzle piece she'd just received. Then she said, he knew the exact locations, the locations of the dismembered body parts. The person who sent this is the real killer we need to find. But how did he know the internal information? This looks identical to the marked locations, marked in the autopsy report. These things cannot be made public to the press. Goen also skeptically replied, this red line looks like a new line was drawn over an old picture. What is the real motive behind this action? While she was pondering the reason, Anna continuously fired off questions. Why didn't the killer strike Chimok, but stood watching someone else do it for him like that? There is one thing for certain, they are all victims of a serial murder. After that, Aina drove to the prison to meet Jang Hee, then showed her that puzzle piece to take a look. Looking at it for a moment, Jang Hee immediately said she had never seen this puzzle piece before. So someone else also wanted to kill my husband? Anna answered that yes, exactly. Did you feel like you were being followed, or anyone loitering around? That person seemed to know you intended to kill your husband, so they secretly followed. Jang Hee suddenly remembered something, so she immediately said, while at the lake, I felt like someone was looking at me. I'm very sensitive, so if anyone is nearby, I know immediately. But why did you guys find that suitcase? I thought I threw it very deep. Ina calmly replied, at the edge of the lake there were tire tracks. The tire tracks were very clearly imprinted. This made Jang Hee completely surprised, because at that time, she and her accomplice had carried the suitcase, not dragged it at all. At the same time, because a new case occurred at the factory area, Han Sim went to the scene. According to the medical examiner's statement, the victim's preliminary cause of death was death by poisoning. The estimated time was from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. Ina also drove to the scene. Walking while pondering the puzzle piece issue, she ran into Naji, so she immediately asked how the counseling session within Chan was. The counseling session within Chan. Then seeing Naji hesitantly change the subject, Ina didn't ask anymore either, but went inside to meet the violent crimes unit. Everyone wondered and asked for the special reason. What reason Ina came all the way here for? She immediately said it was just out of personal curiosity, nothing else. Currently, 3 suspects had contact with the victim. They are being interrogated. They have all been tested for poison, and so far, they haven't shown any symptoms. What needs to be done right now is to go check the security cameras. With that said, the whole team quickly left to perform their duties. Ina held onto Han Sim's arm. She asked when the analysis would be finished and a decision made, but Han Sim was busy, so he quickly replied, let's leave. leave. That for later, Ina went inside and began to reenact the scene in her mind. Only one security camera captured the entrance. This was a perfect locked room case. A murder by poison occurring in a locked room. The culprit could have brought the alcohol and poured poison into it, but the container holding the poison hadn't been found yet, so that conclusion couldn't be drawn. The culprit couldn't have possibly added it in front of everyone either, so it must have been added beforehand somewhere else, making the victim drink the bottle of soju alone, the bottle containing the poison, without any suspicion or resistance. If not meticulously planned, it couldn't have succeeded. The culprit was a meticulous planner, unaffected by emotions and possessing high self-control, matching the characteristics of the jigsaw killer. Meanwhile, Han Sim was checking the security camera outside the staff break room and saw only 3 close colleagues of the victim. 3 people were the ones entering and leaving the room, so they were quickly interrogated by Han Sim to take their statements. Dong Chul stated that he woke up in the morning and saw Dong Han lying next to him. He shook him endlessly, but he wouldn't wake up, so he began to feel something was wrong. When he realized Dong Han was already dead, he then called to report it to the police. As for Gap J, he stated, yesterday was Dong Han's first day back at work, so the guys organized a drinking session after work. Getting off work around 8 p.m., they started drinking. While drinking, Gap J's wife called, yelling and telling him to come home early, so he had a huge argument with his wife over the phone, then finally left for home at 1 a.m. Deok Moon was the one who went to buy rice wine, along with soju. He also conveniently bought some other miscellaneous items, like canned peaches, kimchi, and stuff like that, then brought them to the room as drinking snacks. He couldn't remember the exact time, but when he came back from the restroom, Dong Han and Dong Chul both were already dead, drunk, and asleep. Gap J was nowhere to be seen either, so he just went home as well. Only when he went to work in the morning did he hear the news that Dong Han had died. After collecting the statements from all 3, everything perfectly matched the time recorded by the security camera. None of them were lying, and they were all Dong Han's longtime colleagues. Yesterday was his first day back. After a 1-year leave of absence, Dong Han's family had no one left either. His wife passed away 5 years ago. His son also just died last year, so he lived alone. A while later, Han Sim went to meet Dong Chul's wife to get more information. She kept saying her husband was a good person, he would never commit murder. It was just that he panicked so much. He called his wife to ask what to do, so she told her husband to call the police. Even though Dong Chul had borrowed money from Dong Han in the past, he had already paid it all off, so he had no involvement whatsoever. Han Sim immediately returned to interrogate Dong Chul, asking Dong Chul about the debt, so he started getting angry and asked, who brought that up? Dong Chul had pretty much paid it off. There were only 3 million left, so there was no reason to kill someone over 3 million. He immediately shifted the suspicion onto Deok Moon, because that guy was the one who pulled the soju out of the fridge, whereas he himself never touched it. Then halfway through, he said he had to leave early and woke Dong Chul up. Wasn't he doing that on purpose? To create an alibi. Furthermore, from the very beginning, Deok Moon was the one who invited them, the one who initiated the drinking session for the group first. So Inspector An and Inspector Joe went to take the supermarket owner's statement. According to his statement, Deok Moon dropped by yesterday to buy soju and snacks. The time of purchase was around past 7 p.m., and he also bought some other things, like canned peaches, lip balm, and wet wipes too. Inspector Joe noticed a suspicious point, because Deok Moon arrived at the break room at past 8 p.m., while this supermarket was only a 5-minute walk away, yet he took a whole 34 minutes to buy things and return to drink with everyone. After that, the two returned to report the news, to report to Captain Kang. The autopsy results were out. The cause of death was nicotine poisoning. Nicotine was found in the half-empty soju bottle. The other 3 colleagues tested negative for poison, so Dong Han was the only one who drank nicotine. But Gapja vapes e-cigarettes. Even his brother-in-law is the owner of an e-cigarette shop. When called in for interrogation, Gap J started defending himself. He said he never used nicotine to kill anyone, then shifted the suspicion onto Dong Chul, because he and Dong Han had money transactions with each other. After compiling all the information, the currently available information, Captain Kang concluded, Gap J had a history of buying in bulk a month ago. Dong Chul was with the victim, with him until the very end, and had monetary ties. Deok Moon had a 34-minute gap. On the night the crime occurred, he was also the one who took the nicotine-laced soju bottle out of the fridge, but he himself didn't drink a single drop. All 3 of them were now suspecting one another. Inspector Joe believed the culprit was Deok Moon because he was the only one associated with the soju bottle. Inspector An also agreed, because Deok Moon's 34-minute gap was highly suspicious. Han Sim agreed that Deok Moon was currently the prime suspect, but what was his motive? That was still unclear. Dong Han was a man of few words, but whenever whenever the new year came around, he would buy gifts for his colleagues. He was especially fond of Deok Moon because they were from the same hometown. He considered him like a blood brother. The rookie innocently asked what analysis Anna had provided because he had seen her earlier, seen her drop by the crime scene. Inspector An immediately scolded him angrily. We just need to find the evidence and throw them in jail. What do we need a psychological profiler for? Meanwhile, Anna was deep in thought. She pondered what the murder motive was because the crime scene felt wrong somehow. Something was slightly off. At this moment, Goen walked in and said, "There are no wrong crime scenes, only staged ones." This made Anna realize the problem, so she immediately gave a thumbs up in admiration to Goen. That night, Han Sim arrived at the scene, only to find Ina already sitting inside. She was also pondering and weighing things. Figuring out what the murder motive was, Han Sim immediately recounted 2 detective stories about locked room murders. Locked room murders he had read. In those, the murder motive was very hard to guess, like a young child being easily overlooked because no one would think a little girl was the culprit, or the culprit being someone no one expected. It turned out to be an orangutan. Inherently, the motive for murder has always been hard to guess. After hearing the stories, Anna felt even more so. She felt that recent detective novels were written with cliché plots. When Han Sim asked about the puzzle piece, did the puzzle piece get delivered? Ina immediately made a requested Mr. Curry to follow her. Both returned to Han Sim's apartment. Ina casually picked up the pizza box that had just been delivered, then typed in the passcode to open the door and entered the house as if she were the real owner, leaving Han Sim speechless, not knowing what to say. She went inside, wrote the names of each suspect on pieces of paper, sticky notes. Then she stuck the piece of paper with Gap J's name, stuck it onto Han Sim, and asked why he killed Dong Han. Han Sim understood the assignment and started role-playing, and suggested that Gap J killed out of jealousy regarding promotion at the workplace. Anna immediately analyzed. Gap J normally hasn't even eaten anything, and still has to ask his wife, so he is an indecisive person. And Dong Han was the only person who recommended him for a promotion, so killing him wouldn't bring any benefit. The motive also wasn't sufficient. Finishing her words, Anna swapped to the next piece of paper, written with Dong Chul's name. So Han Sim role-played being angry, asserting that he had almost finished paying off his debt. Anna immediately explained, if there were emotions related to money, then it could be possible, but with Dong Han's personality, he probably wouldn't demand debt repayment aggressively or demand sky-high interest rates. Anna took the piece of paper with Deok Moon's name, stuck it on his shirt and said, now only the number 1 suspect remains. That is none other than Deok Moon. Anyone looking would say, I'm the killer, because I was the one who took the soju bottle, the bottle with nicotine, out of the fridge. Furthermore, there was a 34-minute gap. Do you want to know what I was doing during that time? As she spoke, Anna pressed close to Han Sim. Although uncomfortable, Han Sim also realized the key point was that Deok Moon went to meet his mistress. During that 34-minute gap, Anna immediately continued, that's the reason I went to buy lip balm and didn't wear a wedding ring. But did Dong Han know about this and advise a breakup? It's possible, but with someone impulsive like Deok Moon, there definitely had to be warning signs. But here, there was nothing at all, so the killer wasn't him. Han Sim asked curiously, so did the puzzle piece get delivered this time? So Anna answered, the killer's personality this time matches the characteristics of the killer in the jigsaw puzzle murder case, but that soju bottle containing nicotine, since when was it in the fridge? What if someone put that soju bottle in the fridge beforehand to make them argue and suspect one another, while the killer stood behind watching the drama unfold? The reason for the death needs to be searched extensively outside and not among those 3 colleagues. Furthermore, there is a possibility that Dong Han died in place of those 3. No possibility should be ruled out, because someone holding a grudge against all 4 people could also be the killer. Han Sim suddenly remembered the janitor. The janitor at the factory also vaped e-cigarettes. So the next day, he was called into the interrogation room. Han Sim showed Captain Kang the security camera footage recorded the scene of the janitor going in and out of the break room to clean. Besides those 4, only he went in and out frequently. Inspector Choi also said, on the day the incident occurred, the janitor ran into Dong Chul and asked why he was so sober today. When questioned by Han Sim and Captain Kang asked pressing questions, the janitor merely stated calmly, my job is cleaning, so even if I dislike them drinking alcohol in the room, I still have to do my cleaning duties. Moreover, this e-cigarette device was given by Gap J. On the day his brother-in-law opened the shop, because Gap J doesn't smoke, he gave it to the janitor. As for him asking Dong Chul why he looked so sober, it was because he was always drunk. Seeing him unusually sober that morning, he just blurted out the question. Seeing the inspectors were still suspicious, so the janitor quickly said, I don't know what the 3 of them said, but it wasn't me. Dong Han was a good person, so I didn't kill anyone. But do you guys know what happened at this factory a year ago? Meanwhile, Aina was tearing her hair out, thinking about the killer's motive. She even asked Sundu, "If I killed you right here, then what would be my motive?" Sundu immediately replied, "If it were Ina, it would probably be out of curiosity." Ina was surprised because indeed it was Sundu, who understood her very well, but she still had a headache, couldn't understand what the motive here was. Sundu then offered advice. Try thinking about what kind of person the victim was. You always look at the case from the killer's perspective. This time try standing on the opposite side. Become the victim, then look straight into the killer's eyes. The killer has no motive to kill me. Then why did I die? Is that person truly the killer? Try rethinking it carefully from the beginning. That night, Hansim sat reading the files. Donghan's personal file. While reading the line that his son died last year, Aina stood behind and spoke up. From the very beginning, you should have paid attention to this. This is the right thing to look at. The fact that Donghan's son died a year ago. Why didn't you tell me? So the two of them drove to Donghan's private residence. After observing for a while, everyone felt this place was too forcedly neat, like everything was prepared in advance. Before going far away, Hansim even thought of his friend, a friend of his from the past. That person's room was exactly the same and had attempted suicide many times. Anna stood in front of the mirror. There was a photo of Donghan taped to it, along with his 3 colleagues. She put herself in the victim's perspective, then took the photo down and said, "All of this was just a play. It's true, the victim actually had a motive. Donghan's son died a year ago, right? You should try asking those 3 whether Donghan had any reason to kill them or not." So all 3 were called into the interrogation room. When Hansim asked if Donghan had any reason to kill you guys, everyone remained silent. He continued asking further. Then the accident that caused Donghan's son to die a year ago, did you 3 have any involvement in it? I heard the janitor mention it, so please tell me, that last winter, what happened at that factory? It turned out that a year ago, Donghan's son entered the factory to work with his dad. One day, when Donghan was away on a business trip, Dongchul assigned a task to the boy, using a broom to sweep the conveyor belt, then went inside the break room, drinking with Deok Moon and Gap Je. When hearing the boy's screams, the 3 rushed out in a panic, only to see the boy's arm being crushed by the conveyor belt. Deok Moon hastily turned off the conveyor machine, while Dongchul was about to call for an ambulance, but was stopped because last time a foreigner also had an accident, so the boss had instructed, if anything happens, report it first before taking action. But they kept calling and the boss wouldn't answer. The 3 began to make excuses, discussing beforehand that the accident occurred out of carelessness, so they had absolutely no fault in this matter. Finally, a while later, Donghan's son was taken to the hospital, but the golden hour had passed, so when he arrived at the location, the boy passed away. After hearing the story, Hansim asked further, did Donghan ever use his son's matter to threaten or extort money from you? Deokmoon shook his head and replied, no, because anyway he knew it was an accident. Hansim angrily said, that wasn't a simple accident. Do you think he didn't know? I was curious why he died. Died exactly on the day he returned to work. I kept thinking one of you 3 had been waiting for this day, but it turned out that was the day that Donghan was waiting for. He must have deeply resented you guys, because from the start you left his son there all alone. For instance, if an accident occurred, you just needed to call an ambulance immediately, but you guys didn't do that. That's why there was the matter of him drinking the nicotine-laced soju bottle himself. Donghan planned it from the very beginning. He was also the one who put the soju bottle into the fridge beforehand and poured it into the glass himself, drank a gulp to commit suicide. After the case was closed, Anna became even more confused. She sought out Sungdu and couldn't stop asking, why not kill everyone, but instead die himself? If he wanted to frame those 3 as the killers, he should have planned a perfect crime. Doing this, what's the point? Sungdu signaled for Ina to calm down, then explained, once a human is pushed into a corner, some will stab others, while the other kind will stab themselves. Donghan was the second type of person. Because he couldn't stab others, he stabbed himself. Perhaps it was because he wanted those 3 to blame and suspect one another. He wanted the crimes of those 3 to not be easily erased. Donghan seemed to be the weak type of person, so he probably lacked the courage to witness the tragic end of the other 3. Weak just like Ina is. Ina immediately affirmed she wasn't weak at all, so Sungdu didn't argue anymore. Instead, he stood up to prepare, because he had an appointment tonight. That evening, Hansim arrived home. Seeing Ina had already bought alcohol and snacks waiting, he immediately asked, am I playing the role of Donghan this time? Then sat down on the chair. Ina stood up to take the soju bottle out of the fridge, poured it into both their glasses and said, when pushed into a corner, some people will stab others, while some people will stab themselves. What type of person do you think I am? If you've observed me, you should know. Are you still not certain? Answer quickly right now. Hansim didn't say anything, just picked up the liquor glass and downed it in one gulp. Anna said with satisfaction, that's a perfect answer. Let me show you the puzzle piece right now. When seeing the puzzle piece Anna just received, Hansim couldn't hide his surprise, because the red marks were identical identical to every hack mark on Chimok's body. Ina immediately said, "The killer is all around us. If we meet him, we must ask, why did he hand over the job of killing to someone else? The owner of the puzzle piece is clearly someone who will harm others, and why are the characters in the puzzle piece behaving like that? Some characters shoot at dolls. Some characters hold cotton candy, then laugh and whisper. Some characters wear armbands and dance. What if these three people aren't victims, but are the killers instead?" Just like Donghan's case, Han Sim began to get a headache. Before he could process it, Anna continued, "My uncle, Miyeon, and Chimok. If there was a case where all three of these people were the killers, what then? And if the killer of that case is more than just one person?" Anna attached the remaining two pieces onto the third puzzle piece and said, "Right now there are only 3 puzzle pieces, but next, there could be 6 pieces, or 9 pieces. And even more than that." Both Ina and Han Sim gradually realized this wasn't just a simple case, but the continuation of a serial murder case that is gradually unfolding. Han Sim was sleeping soundly on the table. When the alarm rang, he fumbled around, looking for Ina's figure, when she opened the door and walked in, carrying 2 boxes of stuff. At this point, Han Sim vaguely remembered what happened last night. While drinking and discussing the case, Ina had decided to choose Han Sim's apartment as a base because she liked the atmosphere here more than at home, and working here would be more discreet, avoiding leaking information. Since he was drunk, Han Sim just nodded, agreeing without hesitation. Anna taped the photos of each victim on the wall. In an excited mood, she even ordered coffee in advance, according to Han Sim's preference. After that, both of them started analyzing to find the commonalities. Among the 3 victims, Miyeon had no criminal record whatsoever. Chimok only had driving, intentionally causing injury. As for Ina's uncle, there was nothing suspicious at all. He didn't even have any connection to Miyeon. But from Miyeon, Chimok popped up. While discussing, Ina got curious and asked about the tattoo on Han Sim's neck. So he quickly said, "This is a tattoo from when I infiltrated a gang 3 years ago. I've only gone to get it removed once. Until now, I haven't been able to continue removing it because of the pain." After asking, Ina continued scanning the call history. Chimok's call history. Noticing he called someone with the name Junsu up to 3 times before he died, Han Sim quickly said he had never met Junsu because he had a clear alibi, so he wasn't listed as a suspect. Finishing his words, he called Captain Kang to ask about Junsu. Captain Kang also found it suspicious because Junsu said he didn't know Chimok, while the call history showed them calling each other up to 3 times. The last call lasted for more than 1 minute, so they probably knew each other. When Captain Kang asked Han Sim for the reason, mentioning Junsu, he quickly said it was just out of curiosity and then hung up. Han Sim turned around to see Ina had disappeared out of sight, leaving only a sticky note on the laptop, reading, "I went to meet Junsu." Reading, "I went to meet Junsu." Ina went to Junsu's company to meet him. The initial impression was that Junsu was quite rude and hot-tempered. He adamantly asserted he didn't know the 3 victims Ina mentioned. Ina saw that obnoxious attitude and quickly said, "All 3 victims I mentioned were killed by the same culprit. The culprit is perhaps targeting his next victim, and he is hiding somewhere waiting. If he wants to kill Mr. Junsu here, what would the reason be? Have you ever created a motive for someone to want to kill you?" Seeing Junsu maintaining his condescending, uncaring attitude, she continued telling the story about the driver who attacked his passengers. Just because they had an obnoxious attitude and looked down on others, that driver used a hammer to smash right into the victims' heads. The forceful blows caused blood to splatter everywhere. So when he was caught, Ina offered a piece of advice. She advised him not to act so blatantly like that, but instead use a sharp needle to stab the back of the gray neck, just slightly above the first cervical vertebra. If it were the killer I'm looking for, he would do that. As she spoke, Ina poked her finger into the back of Junsu's neck. This made him angry and warned Ina. He demanded she leave immediately before getting slapped. Ina walked outside and took out Chimok's photo. She asked the receptionist if he often dropped by, and whether he dropped by without needing an appointment. Seeing the receptionist hesitate, she didn't wait for an answer, and just turned her back and walked away. In her head, she silently wondered what reason Chimok came here for. At the same time, Han Sim went to the prison to meet Jong Hee. He came to ask if she knew the man in the photo, asked who this Mr. Junsu was. Jong Hee immediately said, "My husband once took me to meet him, only once before we got married. I think it was to ask him to officiate our wedding, but he refused and also acted very condescending. My husband used to talk about this man and said both of them experienced their glorious days together. But Mr. Cop, you've probably never killed anyone, right? You're truly too boring. So next time, send Anna to meet me." Meanwhile, Ina brought a potted plant to gift Sungdu. She bragged about having slept for 2 hours without waking up. She had slept very well at the secret base. Finishing her words, she immediately asked the reason why Sungdu was staying in the same building as In Chan. Didn't she find living near a man inconvenient? So Sungdu replied that she never considered Inchan a man. Anyway, living like this is beneficial in many ways. Living expenses and money can also be saved. Furthermore, we live in the same building, not living together. Inchan was intently admiring the painting he drew when Anna spoke up. I also know how to draw a little bit, but this painting is a bit too copied. But why are you living in the same building as Sungdu? Could it be that you like her? Seeing Inchan's embarrassed look, Anna understood the matter herself. That evening, Han Sim arrived at his apartment. He saw the pile of goods Ina ordered left in front of the door. She even opened the door to ask Han Sim to carry them in for her. Looking at this pile of goods, he could only feel helpless. He took off his hat to look, and Ina quickly warned him, "Why did you take the lid off? Don't just take the lid off in front of me. It looks scary." Finishing her words, Anna showed off the dehumidifier she just bought. This made Han Sim even more speechless, not knowing what else to say. After that, both of them ate pizza while discussing the case, discussing the connection between Chimok and Junsu. These two didn't seem to have any relation to each other, yet they went through their glorious days together. Perhaps it means when both of them made a lot of money. Ina was about to order more coffee when Han Sim quickly asked, "You have a home, why don't you go back? What are you staying here for?" Even buying a dehumidifier and other miscellaneous items, Ina quickly said, "I have a base now, why go home? Moreover, I feel safe here and can sleep well. Yesterday you fell asleep at the dining table, and I dozed off on the living room sofa. The last time I slept that well was 10 years ago. At home, I can't catch a wink of sleep, perhaps because there isn't a single scar here. As for my house, there are scars everywhere. Over there is where my uncle lay dead. Next to it is the blood-soaked spot." Han Sim suggested Ina should sell that house. She should find another place to live, but Ina couldn't possibly leave that house, especially while she herself still couldn't remember anything. Han Sim quickly held out his hand to demand a freeloading fee, so Ina also held out her hand, demanding money for the food she bought. Han Sim just burst out laughing when he received a call. It was a call from Captain Kang. He informed him that Junsu was found dead, and requested Han Sim to quickly come to the scene. At this point, the police had flocked to lock down the cannon tower. While everyone was taking photos of the scene, Inspector Choi was outside, taking statements from the staff. According to the staff, the director finished the countermeasure meeting. After that, he went down to the office. Seeing the director hadn't come out for too long, the staff went in to check. They kept calling, but he wouldn't wake up, so the staff approached to look. Only then did they know he was already dead. After that, the staff immediately called to report to the police. Recently, because of the death, articles related to Mayor's son, along with the accident at the resort, the company's stock price had been continuously plummeting, so the director was also under a lot of pressure. Inspector Choi thought it might be due to excessive pressure that he suffered a myocardial infarction and died. Just as he finished speaking, Han Sim and Ina walked in. Seeing Ina, everyone was surprised, because they thought Captain Kang had called asking for her assistance. Ina quickly spoke up, "I thought you guys needed help, so I came here. Besides, I already met this man this morning." While Ina was carefully examining the scene, Captain Kang called Han Sim outside to talk. "Just this morning you called to ask me about Junsu, and by tonight, he is dead. Do you have anything you want to tell me?" "Can't say it, or unable to say it yet." Seeing Han Sim reply that it was because of both those reasons, Captain Kang continued to speak. "The entire 30th floor of the cannon tower is used by DH Construction Company. Yet for some reason, from 5 a.m. until now, there is not a single piece of security camera footage of the 30th floor. All data has been wiped clean by someone." Han Sim quickly said, "I will go check immediately." Saying that, he turned and walked away, while Captain Kang looked after him with a meaningful gaze. As for Ina, she put on gloves and pulled back Junsu's collar to look. If stabbed above the first cervical vertebra, the needle mark would be hidden by the hair. Then it would be harder to find traces of the injection. Yet the killer stabbed below the sixth cervical vertebra. He acted in such a blatant manner, as if he wanted people to quickly find out where on earth was he hiding and by what route and method did he escape. At this moment, Han Sim walked in and said, "It's true that from Chi Mok, another victim popped up. All the security camera data of the 30th floor has been wiped. Is Junsu truly the fourth victim?" Ina immediately replied, "That's right, he is the fourth victim and also the killer." News about the big shot in the construction industry found dead. This news spread everywhere. Chief Hoon also had a headache having to handle this case. Captain Kang even had to arrive at the headquarters early to investigate. While sitting watching the news, reporter Park came to ask Han Sim for information, but because the autopsy results weren't out yet, he couldn't reveal a single word. Instead, he invited reporter Park to have breakfast with him. Meanwhile, Han Sim and Ina were sitting waiting at the National Forensic Service when a police officer came up and said a delivery person had arrived and asked me to give this to you. Seeing the small yellow package, Ina understood it herself. She opened it to look and saw a new puzzle piece with a drawing of a clown. While both were intently looking at the puzzle piece, the medical examiner reported reported. According to the autopsy results, the cause of death was shock, hypoglycemic shock, due to an overdose of insulin injection. It seemed the killer intentionally injected an overdose of insulin and also found the injection mark at the back of the neck. After that, Han Sim drove Ina away. While he couldn't help but wonder why the killer knew Ina was at the National Forensic Service. While stopped at a red light, she didn't say anything and just got out of the car and ran off somewhere. Han Sim was bewildered, not understanding what was happening. He could only run around looking while calling Ina's phone, but no one answered. Ina returned to the apartment by herself. She attached the fourth piece to the remaining pieces. The picture was gradually appearing, and it was drawing something like an amusement park. Could it be that all these people were related to that park? While Ina was deducing, Han Sim walked into the house. He angrily said, "Why did you suddenly get out of the car? You didn't even answer your phone calls." Ina smiled and asked, "Are you worried about me?" Han Sim helplessly explained, "I worry about all citizens, alright? Moreover, the killer knows about you and is tracking you. Don't you see you are in danger? He could attack you at any moment." Ina immediately replied, "If he wanted to attack, he would have done it long ago. He wants me alive to find the hidden meaning in the puzzle pieces. If I die, it will definitely be after the puzzle is completed. So until then, I am completely safe." Han Sim still wasn't reassured, so he firmly instructed Ina to be very careful. Just as he finished speaking, Captain Kang called, asking him out. Han Sim went to the pub to meet Captain Kang. He got straight to the point, asked what was going on between Han Sim and Ina. "Are the two of you dating or something? Why are you constantly sticking by each other's side?" Han Sim immediately explained that wasn't it. It was just out of personal curiosity. "Wait until the appropriate time and I will explain it later." After taking a sip of beer, Captain Kang said, "Tomorrow we have to go to Yangyang together. I've contacted the Gangwon police station." In Ina's statement, one thing was clearly written. Before Junsu died, he had an appointment to meet someone. The next day, Ina sat searching for amusement parks nationwide. After rummaging around for a while, she also found a photo of the Ferris wheel at Dream Park, with details matching the drawing in the puzzle piece. At the same time, Captain Kang and Han Sim went to the construction site. They came to meet Do-hee. Before Junsu died, the two had an appointment to meet to resolve the accident at the resort. Yet now he is dead, so things have become even more complicated. Han Sim thought Do-hee must be very annoyed with Junsu, annoyed because he talked too much. So he immediately justified himself and said, "If he dies, I suffer even more losses. Besides, it's not just me who hates him. I can't pinpoint anyone specifically, but in my opinion, there is the owner working at the Chinese restaurant." Hearing this, Han Sim immediately knew that person was Chi Mok. Do-hee said that he played golf very well. "I just felt the relationship between that guy and Junsu was a bit strange. When betting on golf, Junsu needed a playing partner, so he occasionally called Chi Mok because he liked betting and was also very good at golf. But whenever he got drunk, he would demand from Junsu the construction of another resort, even though he himself had no involvement whatsoever in those 3 business deals. According to Junsu's usual personality, he would have gone crazy and cursed him out, or rushed in and beat him up. But when hearing those words, he stayed silent. He stayed silent and let it pass without saying anything. At the same time, Ina arrived at Dream Park, then compared the drawing on the puzzle piece with the Ferris wheel. While she was thinking, an older uncle appeared from nowhere. The uncle asked if she wanted to ride the Ferris wheel. "If you want to ride, I'll turn the machine on. Since you have the chance, take a ride, because at the end of this month, it will close down here." Ina immediately asked curiously, "How long has this park been operating, uncle? During its operation time, has there been any major accident here? Like any fatal incident, for example?" The uncle firmly replied, "This park has been operating for 33 years. When it first opened, this place was spectacular. I've worked here since the opening until now. There hasn't been any major accident either. Only cases of children getting lost because it's too crowded. Remember to take pretty pictures and post them. Many people have beautiful memories here." Meanwhile, Han Sim was driving while talking to Captain Kang. "Do you really think this case is related to the accident at the resort? I feel the timing is a bit strange. A week after the accident at the resort, Junsu was found dead. Initially, they also thought the cause of death was illness, but that was the day after Junsu was investigated by the police. Because of this issue, the company was under immense pressure. If the killer wanted to cover up the murder, they totally could have. Even if murdered, it could be staged as death by illness, but he intentionally injected a massive amount of insulin, making anyone who looked find it abnormal. Perhaps it was because he wanted the death not to be buried amidst the ongoing commotion. So I think this matter is not related to the accident at the resort. First, I will investigate further regarding the relationship between Junsu and Chi Mok." That evening, as soon as Han Sim stepped into the house, he saw balloons everywhere, and Anna was intently looking at the puzzle pieces, comparing them with the photos she took at Dream Park. Han Sim was bewildered and didn't understand anything yet when Ina said said, Dream Park opened in 1990 and is about to close down at the end of this month. This amusement park is the setting of the puzzle piece. All 4 victims up to now still have no connection to each other. At the park, there has never been any crime or accident either, so why was it chosen as the setting? Han-sim began to analyze. This time, isn't it possible the killer made a mistake first? Looking at the situation, it seems he knew you went to meet Jun-soo, so he hastily took action, because when an unforeseen variable appears in his plan, he might also make some mistake. In this world, naturally, no one is perfect. Anna wasn't very convinced for one reason, because even if the killer made a mistake, that would also be part of his plan. Finishing her words, Ina stood up and went down to the parking lot, so Han-sim also tagged along closely behind, then casually got into the car and sat with Ina, not knowing he had made a mistake, daring to get into the car of a crazy driver, and entrusting his life to Ina. Han-sim felt helpless, only able to cling tightly to the seat. At this moment, he saw a car following behind them, looking through the rearview mirror, so as soon as the car stopped at a red light, Han-sim quickly got out of the car and approached that suspicious car, and looked inside. Seeing him vaguely hiding the camera in his hand, Han-sim intended to smash the window to subdue him, but was stopped by Ina. It turned out that was a person hired by Ina, hired to see who was following her. The next day, as soon as Inspector Choi arrived at the headquarters, he met Han-sim. Because he was the first to arrive at the scene, Han-sim had many things that needed reconfirming. The rookie was fed up and didn't want to go to the scene at all, but because he was forced by Han-sim, he had to tag along. The two went to the 30th floor of the Cannon Tower to meet the receptionist. Han-sim showed the photos of Jun-soo's desk and asked, I wonder if you see anything strange in these photos. For instance, is there any object that doesn't belong to Jun-soo that appears in the picture? The receptionist took a look and didn't find anything unusual, but when Inspector Choi looked closely again, he quickly said he didn't see the handkerchief. The receptionist suspiciously replied, but the boss never uses handkerchiefs. The two of them then took the photo into the office to check. Inspector Choi firmly stated the handkerchief was clearly right next to the massage slippers. It looked very old, exactly the type that older uncles use. Han-sim quickly asked, you arrived first, so who came after that? Inspector Choi searched his memory and replied, Inspector Joe, Inspector An and Captain Kang arrived. Only after that did the crime scene investigation team arrive. At that time, Inspector Enna was also present with you. Han-sim hurriedly went to the evidence storage to find it. He rummaged through the box, but didn't see any old handkerchief, so he had to re-watch the video recording the crime scene at that time, but nothing could be found in the video either. Inspector Choi pointed at the screen and stated firmly, I saw the old handkerchief lying next to the massage slippers. Because it was a very old handkerchief, I remember this spot clearly. I'm only saying this now because I thought it was the victim's belonging, so the crime scene investigation team should have collected it. Han-sim instructed the rookie not to tell anyone about this. Just as he finished speaking, the rest of the team returned. Han-sim observed silently, then looked over at Captain Kang. Then he stood up, walked over to him, and requested to speak privately. Up on the rooftop, Han-sim recounted the story about the handkerchief and suggested that there was a killer within the police department, or an accomplice in hiding. Captain Kang nodded and said, for now, just stay silent and observe secretly. After getting off work, Han-sim drove home while calling Ina, but he kept calling and no one answered. He had just arrived at the apartment parking lot when he received a message from Anna. She messaged the apartment number in the one residential building, along with the house passcode. So after that, Han-sim was present at Mi-yeon's apartment. As soon as he arrived, Anna asked, your house and this place aren't too far, so why live alone? If it were me, I would probably live in a better house with my mom. Han-sim quickly replied, both my mom and I are uncomfortable. Back when my dad died, I didn't even let my mom remarry, and I didn't allow my dad's belongings to be thrown away either. So anyway, living alone is comfortable now. Anna shook her head in exhaustion and said, it's much more serious than I thought. You are a man who cannot forget the past. Let's get to the main point. This place is the common ground between Mi-yeon, Chimok, and Jun-soo. The first owner of this apartment 5802 was Jun-soo. Next was Chimok, and the last owner was Mi-yeon. I remembered what Chimok said when he met Mi-yeon at the bar. He loudly stated that Mi-yeon's apartment was originally his, so I checked the real estate registry of apartment 5802, and from there, the names of all 3 ill-fated victims popped up. What on earth happened at this place? Aina sat in apartment 5802 deep in thought. For some special reason, all 3 victims were the owners of this apartment. Mi-yeon was the last owner, before that was Chimok, and the very first owner was Jun-soo. At the time of the apartment sales launch, Jun-soo bought 13 units. The other 12 units were mostly left for his family members. Then for what reason did he transfer unit 5802 to Chimok? That evening, Anna and Han-sim sat down together to deduce. Chimok and Mi-yeon used to be lovers about to get married, so it's Understandable, they would transfer the apartment to each other. But for what reason did Jun-soo and Chi-mok transfer the apartment? Could it be due to some mutual benefit? Han Sim said that apartment 5802 wasn't involved in any lawsuit or any accident. It's just strange that the transfers all happened in a short period of time. Jun-soo bought the house and 2 months later transferred it to Chi-mok. A month later, the apartment was transferred to Mi-yeon. If, like you said, there is a case involving your uncle and those three were the killers, then it's possible. In exchange for the crime, those three received apartment 5802. Anna remained doubtful because if so, then why? Why didn't Chief Jun receive anything? There must definitely be a reason why his case was the first one. Han Sim thought it might be related to the Hangang police station, because one city was under the jurisdiction of the Hangang police station, and Chief Jun used to be the chief for a year. He might have suppressed some case related to one city, or turned a blind eye to some crime. Anna quickly said, if that were the case, my uncle should have received a big reward, yet he received absolutely nothing. Both started putting each kind puzzle piece together. Jun-soo was the clown crushing the sandcastle built by children. Chi-mok wore an armband and danced. Mi-yeon whispered to someone, and Chief Jun shot at a human-shaped doll. With the images in the puzzle pieces, it could constitute some crime. Han Sim began to get a headache, so he asked Anna if she wanted to go outside for a walk to drink coffee, but she refused to go, and handed her card to Han Sim to buy it for her. So he had to go down below the apartment, go into the shop to buy coffee. When returning, he saw Anna sound asleep on the dining table, so Han Sim just placed the coffee cup on the table and turned off the light. Seeing that, Anna immediately woke up and said, why turn off the light without putting a blanket over me? It's true, being single for 10 years has its reasons. While Han Sim justified himself saying it's very hot in the house, who covers up with a blanket? Anna cheerfully praised the coffee for being delicious, then invited Han Sim out for a walk, making him so angry he couldn't say anything. The next day, Han Sim went to meet Inspector Tae to ask about Chief Jun. He was curious what kind of person Chief Jun was. Inspector Tae was a bit suspicious because Han Sim spoke as if he did something wrong, and that's why he was killed. At this moment, Ina called, but Han Sim was busy, so he put his phone in his pocket. Inspector Tae also began recounting. Chief Jun was an extraordinary person as a police officer. After all, he was the youngest chief at the time, very good at investigating and looked the part of a cop, so he was favored by his superiors. He didn't exactly resign, but was pushed out to appease public opinion. At that time, his jurisdiction got caught up in a bit of a commotion. Because of the Jungbu murder case, every rainy Monday, there would be a murder and a pantyhose pulled over the face. The Hangang police station was in charge of handling the case. By the time 3 schoolgirls died, they still didn't know it was the same killer, so ultimately leading to 5 deaths. Amidst that chaos, Chief Jun got swept up and had a very bad ending. Not good at all. At the same time, Ina was at a psychological counseling session with Dr. Sung-do. Today Sung-do intended to talk about the people at the special shelter, but Ina immediately changed the subject, wanting to talk about her uncle. I think my uncle might be a different person compared to what I know. Before, the doctor told me to follow my uncle's choices. Now I intend to do exactly that, rather than turn a blind eye anymore, because I didn't know what would happen. I was scared. Is there anything you want to turn a blind eye to and avoid like me? Sung-do quickly replied, of course there is, because I am only human too, but that is my personal, private, secret matter. After finishing the counseling, Anna walked outside, and coincidentally met Naji walking out of I. In Chan's room, Naji immediately justified and explained, my friend works here. The designated police hospital nearby is also only this place. Ina just nodded and let it pass, but when they got down to the parking lot, she quickly asked Naji, that night, did you see Mi-yeon's car? Naji quickly replied, I saw it and remember it very clearly, because that car was the one I dreamed of owning. But hitting a red light and hitting the gas all the way, even knowing there was a police car behind, I couldn't see anything in the backseat either, because the car windows were tinted too dark. It was also nearly 10 p.m. and the road was empty, so I didn't chase after it. If I had stopped that car then, maybe things wouldn't have ended up like this. That matter keeps haunting me until now. Ina nodded and explained, do you know the reason why, knowing there was a police car behind, she still hit the gas? Because she was trying her best to signal for help. If you had stopped the car then, the outcome wouldn't have changed either. It'll probably take a long time to get over it. Let's not blame ourselves too much. Meanwhile, Han Sim was standing waiting in front of the archives, calling Ina, calling endlessly with no one answering. So when she arrived, Han Sim gave her a scolding, but Ina argued back, snapping, what about when you don't answer your phone? After that, both went into the archives to look for Chief Jun, to see if he was ever involved in any case. While searching, Ina said, I kept thinking my uncle quit the police force because of me. What case did that talented, respected uncle end up suppressing? Han Sim immediately replied, human nature is hard to predict, but can you handle it? Can you face those cases? As the psychological profiler, Ina, seeing her nod affirmatively that she could handle it. Han Sim then continued searching. Chief Hoon was on his way to work when Inspector Tae called, asking if anything was up at the Hungang station, because earlier Han Sim had come asking about Chief Jun, and Inspector Tae was hung up on Ina's criminal profiling report. He also wondered what the real reason behind Chief Jun's death was. After searching for a while, Han Sim also found the defamation lawsuit from the victim's family in the Jungbu serial murder case. They sued Myeongsung newspaper and the reporter in charge for defamation. This case dragged on for 3 months and ended with a decision not to prosecute. The plaintiff was the younger brother of the final victim in the Jungbu case. This case coincidentally was the reason Chief Jun resigned from the police force. Both decided to investigate this case deeply first. This might be a victim whose life was ruined by Chief Jun suppressing a case, so now they are out committing murders for revenge. On the way to meet the victim's family of the Jungbu case, Han Sim told Ena about the old handkerchief. Currently, only he, the rookie, and Captain Kang knew this information. Ena quickly said, "Why are you only telling me now? Do you trust those people?" Han Sim now didn't know who to trust because anyone could be the killer, but he firmly trusted Captain Kang. Ena firmly asked, "Can you face those people straightforwardly? Can you investigate as the usual, Inspector Han Sim?" Han Sim still solidly affirmed he could. As for Ena, seeing Han Sim about to open the lid, she quickly warned him. A while later, both met the younger brother of the final victim in the Jungbu case. He was very resentful because back then his sister was defamed by that reporter. Furthermore, when hearing the news that Chief Jun was dead, he was even more surprised because the reporter named Kang Hoon had also committed suicide 10 years ago. Hearing this, both Ena and Han Sim were very surprised, not knowing if it was suicide or not. So Han Sim called his senior at the Gangseo station to request Kang Hoon's case file. After receiving the file, he quickly opened it to look with Ena. While Ena scanned through the call history and saw the name Cho Jae-in, Han Sim found the puzzle piece in the crime scene photo. Furthermore, the case also took place 8 months before Chief Jun was murdered, meaning Chief Jun's case was not the first one. The case of reporter Kang Hoon was actually the first case. Both returned to the apartment and began to deduce. It seemed strange from the beginning, because right from Chief Jun's case, the killer acted very perfectly, leaving no trace whatsoever, whereas a first-time killer would definitely make some kind of mistake. It turned out that was because Chief Jun wasn't the first case. Kang Hoon's case was actually his first case, so perhaps some clue could be found in Kang Hoon's case. Han Sim decided tomorrow he would go meet the person in charge of the case at that time. As for Ena, she would go look for the first puzzle piece. Finishing his words, Han Sim went online to read the articles Kang Hoon had written. The next day, Han Sim handed his annual leave application to Captain Kang. When asked for the reason, he quickly mentioned Ena's psychological profiling report and said, "I'm collaborating with her to investigate further." Finishing his words, Han Sim showed the case report to Captain Kang. After that, both went up to the rooftop to discuss. Han Sim believed all the cases were connected to each other through the puzzle pieces. Now we just need to confirm the first puzzle piece to bring this case to light immediately, because truly this serial case is not simple at all. Captain Kang quickly said that in a situation where we don't know who took the handkerchief in Junsu's case, then making this jigsaw puzzle case public might be a bit hasty. More importantly, do you really trust Ena? How much do you know and understand about her? Ask her directly, and I am not approving the leave application. Anyway, you're investigating Junsu's case. Temporarily don't come to the station, but just continue investigating. If there is anything unusual, report it immediately. After talking to Captain Kang, Chief Hoon called. He asked for what reason Han Sim was digging up a 10-year-old case at the Gangseo station, while Junsu's case hadn't been resolved yet. Han Sim stated that all the ongoing cases, including the one from 10 years ago, were all connected, so he was still going out to continue investigating. Finishing his words, he immediately turned and walked away. While Chief Hoon was furious over Han Sim's obnoxious attitude, meanwhile, Ena went to the Gangseo police station to find evidence in Kang Hoon's case. After rummaging through the evidence box for a while, she also found the first puzzle piece left by the killer. Han Sim went to meet the person in charge of Kang Hoon's case at that time. He also felt the suicide was a bit abnormal. The victim died with a plastic bag pulled over his head. A normal person committing suicide wouldn't die that way. They wanted an autopsy, but the family didn't permit it. Kang Hoon divorced his wife and lived alone with his son for a long time, suffering from severe depression, so he was always on alcohol and sleeping pills. The day before the incident, he also complained to a friend that raising a child alone was too hard, so that was sufficient motive for suicide. When Han Sim mentioned the puzzle piece in the crime scene photo, he quickly continued. Strangely, there was only one puzzle piece. The puzzle piece was placed neatly next to the body. The drawing on that puzzle piece looked very disturbing. It drew a man holding a camera with his eyes sewn shut, looking very bizarre, like a child's drawing, yet also quite like an adult adults drawing. When both went outside to smoke, the inspector remembered again. The person who knows this case best is actually Captain Kang. He was originally the person in charge from the beginning, but suddenly, he was transferred to the special investigation team of the headquarters. Actually, he investigated it until the very end. When I took over, I just followed the superior's orders and closed the case. Hearing this, Han Sim couldn't help but be surprised and asked, again, to be sure. At the same time, Inspector Choi was reviewing the lobby camera at Cannon Tower when Captain Kang walked in and asked, "You told Han Sim that the handkerchief at the scene disappeared, right? Besides that, do you remember anything else? For example, any strange behavior from the people there?" The rookie started getting scared and replied nervously. The scene at that time was too chaotic, but what I told Han Sim was the truth. So how is everything now, and why did the handkerchief disappear? At this moment, Han Sim texted to set up a meeting with Captain Kang because he had something to report. He immediately went to the familiar pub to meet his subordinate. Han Sim drank all the beer in his glass and said, "Do you know when I find you the coolest? It's not when you go to the orphanage to volunteer once a month, because you yourself come from there. So I can understand that. It was when you first took the position of captain. At that time you said you had to go to the victim's funeral, so I asked for the reason why you had to go, and then you said you had to go to apologize. Homicide detectives have the duty to protect citizens, but you had shortcomings. You had to say that you would definitely catch the killer. At that time, I truly found you very cool. I read those detective novels and stuff, which is why I wanted to be a cop. But you were different right from the start. A person with a high sense of responsibility like you should be a cop. Thinking so is why I called you Batman. But why did you hide from me that you were the police officer in charge of Kang Hoon's case? When that was the case, where the first puzzle piece appeared, are you the one who took the handkerchief?" Captain Kang answered bluntly, "I am not the one who took the handkerchief. For what reason do you think I didn't say anything, but instead asked you a lot about Ina? Apartment 212 in the Mokdong residential building is where Kang Hoon passed away. On that day, do you know who was in apartment 314 right on the floor above that house? It was Kang Hoon's son, named San Wook, and his friends. In that group of friends, there was also Ina. It was winter break, so San Wook had a math study group at home. The study session took place from 9 p.m. to midnight. The security camera recorded everyone going home at 12 a.m., but Anna was not among them. According to her statement, she said she wasn't feeling well, so she went home early at 11 p.m., but at that time, she didn't leave the apartment complex at all. According to what the security camera recorded, it wasn't until over an hour later that she left. While Kang Hoon's estimated time of death was between 10 p.m. and midnight, only Anna's alibi at that time was unclear, but I couldn't meet her because I was stopped by Chief Jun. According to his words, that day she felt suffocated, so she went up to the rooftop and stayed there until the study session ended. Do you find that too absurd? I also wanted to dig deeper, but suddenly I was transferred to the headquarters, and 8 months later, Chief Jun was murdered, and similarly to the previous time, Ina's alibi was also unclear. Coming to this point, do you still trust Ina? That's the reason I didn't tell you." Han Sim was confused, only able to say that if we find the accomplice hiding among us, then at that time everything will be clear. Finishing his words, Han Sim stood up, turned his back, and walked away. Meanwhile, Anna drove to the apartment complex where Kang Hoon used to live. 10 years ago, she also used to study math here. That night, Ina saw Kang Hoon drunk, talking on the phone with someone. He also mentioned having gone through glorious days. That was also the last time Ina saw Kang Hoon before going up to room 314 for the study group. During the tutoring session, she felt suffocated, so she went up to the rooftop. Up until that point, nothing special had happened yet. Ina stood on the rooftop, listening to her favorite music and watching the snowy sky, until she saw someone enter the apartment complex through the main entrance. The first murder by the jigsaw killer. The murder itself was almost perfect. The first time must have been very tense, but made no clumsy mistakes, nor left any traces at the scene. If there was one single thing that failed from the killer's perspective, it was that the puzzle piece he left behind went unnoticed. If the soju bottle and sleeping pills had been cleared away, the case wouldn't have been swept under the rug as a suicide, but would have looked entirely like a murder. Returning home, Aina faced Han Sim's interrogation. When Kang Hoon was murdered, what were you doing, and why didn't you tell me that when we were at the archives? Anna immediately replied, "That day I didn't want to study at all. Going home, I would definitely be nagged by my uncle, so I just killed time on the rooftop. Do you still not trust me? You even waited forever to tell me about the handkerchief. Everyone has their own secrets. Do I have to tell you everything? Why not go ask Captain Kang why he knew about Kang Hoon's case, yet said nothing? Why when I mentioned the puzzle piece, he ignored my words? Let's just say he suspects I am the killer. Then why didn't Captain Kang tell you? Think carefully for yourself about who you should trust." Saying that, Aina stood up, turned her back, and walked away. She went home and put the puzzle pieces together. While pondering Wondering who Cho Jae-in was, the housekeeper walked in. So Ina quickly asked if she knew who Cho Jae-in was. The housekeeper replied she had heard the name but couldn't remember the face clearly. Han Sim was confused, not knowing who to trust currently. While observing Captain Kang, he received a message from Ina. You decide who to trust. If you have decided, then no matter what, you must trust me. Meanwhile, Ina took her suitcase to Jeju Island to look for Cho Jae-in and met him at the seaport. It turned out Cho Jae-in always sent gifts on holidays for Chief Jun. Sometimes even on Ina's birthday, Cho Jae-in said it wasn't sending a gift but sending phone credit, because there are many problems that can be solved just by a phone call. That matter was a long time ago. Could it be you came here just for that? Ina quickly replied. How could that be? You know Kang Hoon well, don't you? Hearing this, Cho Jae-in stopped slicing the fish and stood up asking, how do you know Kang Hoon? Are you really Chief Jun's niece? That evening, Han Sim sat drafting a message intending to send it to Ina, but deleted it. He decided to call, but when the other side picked up, it was a man's voice. It turned out to be someone from the Jeju police station. He said, Inspector Ina had an issue, so she was currently at the Jeju station, because she was a suspect in a murder case. Before that, a fisherman walking along the port saw Ina standing on a boat doing something. When he got closer and shone his flashlight more clearly, he saw Ina pulling Cho Jae-in's body out of the water. On the morning of the murder, Cho Jae-in got on his boat and set sail as usual, but shortly after Ina left, there was another presence on Cho Jae-in's boat. When he jolted awake, grabbing a knife in sheer terror, he saw no one. Who knows what the ending was, but Ina became a suspect. The police at the Jeju station also had a headache not knowing what to do. When Han Sim arrived asking what trick Ina was playing now, because he knew full well Ina came here to meet Cho Jae-in, she stubbornly said, if you trust me, I am not the killer, and if you don't trust me, I am the killer. After saying that, she stood up and walked away. The Jeju police also didn't want to believe Ina was a suspect, but the evidence was so clear. Someone even saw her talking to Cho Jae-in at past 5 p.m., while the estimated time of death was 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. They had to make Ina open her mouth before the press caught wind. Because of this matter, Chief Hoon had to personally come to the Jeju station to ask for more time to resolve it. The Jeju chief could give more time but not for long, because Cho Jae-in was also someone in political circles and held a bit of power on this Jeju island, so it had to be resolved smoothly. After the negotiation, Chief Hoon and Captain Kang went to meet Ina. As soon as he saw Ina, Captain Kang asked her what she was plotting, so Ina casually replied, so you're hiding something too, aren't you? Leaving Chief Hoon bewildered, not understanding what was going on between the two. At this time, Han Sim came over to report he was checking all nearby security cameras, then asked for permission to speak privately with Captain Kang. Going outside, he immediately asked, why didn't you say anything when the puzzle piece case was mentioned? If it were me, you could have said something, or is it because you don't trust me either? Captain Kang answered, because you are by Ina's side. Right now, I don't even know what to believe anymore. She's definitely plotting something, and I have to find out what it is. Finishing his words, Captain Kang turned his back and walked away. At the same time, a psychology seminar was being held in Jeju. In-chan was talking about a 10-year-old child patient with mental illness, and also a killer who murdered his father. Sung-do was listening intently when Han Sim called. She hung up because she couldn't answer in the middle of the seminar, so Han Sim had to text saying there was a matter he needed to find her for. Because after the seminar ended, Sung-do went outside to call Han Sim. Seeing that, In-chan curiously walked over asking what was wrong. After that, both went to the Jeju police station to meet Ina to talk. Seeing the two psychologists come looking for her, Ina knew Han Sim had asked them, and Sung-do looked at Anna and said, before coming here I heard the story about In-chan's patient falling into depravity. Is Miss Ina intending to fall into depravity too? Seeing Ina didn't understand, In-chan quickly explained, today at the seminar I shared a case. When you came for psychological counseling, I mentioned it a few times. The story of the 10-year-old boy killing his father. Anna asked Wang In-chan to go outside so she could speak privately with Sung-do, so he also stood up and went outside to wait. At this point, Sung-do quickly asked, why are you doing this? So Anna just smiled and replied, shouldn't you ask me why I committed murder first? A while later, Sung-do walked out to where Han Sim was standing and said, it's nothing special, but she asked to deliver this. When seeing the puzzle piece, Han Sim immediately ran inside, asking Ina, you received this after Cho Jae-in died? Why didn't you answer? You have to say something so I can get you out of here. Ina handed a taxi business card to Han Sim and said, wait until I get out and I'll tell you. Now go check my alibi. Because of this puzzle piece matter, Inspector Tae was called to the Hangang station. Counting Cho Jae-in's case, there are now 6 victims killed. Perhaps a special investigation team needs to be formed. Captain Kang, even though he didn't want to believe Ana's report, still had to. Chief Hoon called Inspector Tae back so he could take charge, also considering it as redeeming the mistakes of the past. Meanwhile, Han Sim finished checking the alibi, so she was released because at the estimated time of Cho Jae-in's death, it was confirmed. Ina took a Jeju company taxi. The driver said Ina took the taxi near the hotel, then returned to the pier. Han Sim couldn't understand the reason for blowing things out of proportion like this, so Anna began to explain. After meeting Cho Jae-in, while taking the taxi near the hotel, someone knocked on the car window and handed me this puzzle piece. How did they know I took a taxi and which hotel I was at? Since before until now, we've only been chasing behind. When there's a puzzle piece, we have to find the case. Then we have to find the connection between the puzzle piece and the victim. We are still groping in the fog, while the killer sees right through us. Han Sim finally understood that was the reason Ina turned herself into a killer. Ina continued explaining. When Cho Jae-in's body was discovered, I was curious to know how the killer would react if I took the blame, because the killer is continuously murdering towards a certain goal, and he wants to use me for that. So I wanted to know when I sank into the water, who would pull me up, because he probably still doesn't want me to sink. On Jeju Island, besides you, a total of 4 people came to see me. Chief Hoon, Captain Kang, Sung-do, and finally, In-chan. The next day, Ina arrived at the counseling room early waiting for Sung-do. As soon as she arrived, Ina decided today they would switch seats to interrogate. Since when was the Jeju seminar scheduled? For some reason, the doctor's face keeps appearing in my head, and facing a patient who never improves must be very exhausting. You could also just ask me not to come anymore. Why continue counseling me? Sung-do immediately replied. That seminar was scheduled 3 months ago. The person who sought me out was Miss Ina. You were uncomfortable counseling with In-chan, so you switched, right? Also, this is the hospital designated by the police. Actually, helping you regain your memories isn't my business. Why you can't remember is what concerns me. I just want to do better than that. In-chan too. Ina silently observed Sung-do's emotions, then stood up and went to the room next door to interrogate In-chan. Knocking on the door and hearing no answer, she opened it and walked in. There was no one inside, so Ina began to observe and found the magnetic keycard to Plenplam, In-chan's apartment in the pen holder. At the same time, Han Sim asked someone in the HR department to send Captain Kang's file over to him. After reading it, he found out he used to work at the Mapo station 10 years ago, so Han Sim immediately drove to meet Chun-soo, because he and Captain Kang used to be on the same team at the Mapo station. Chun-soo started recounting what he knew. To be honest, he was a bit hard to understand. He never confided truly in anyone. He was a man of few words, but sharp in investigation. Even though we worked together for several years, the number of times we went drinking together could be counted on one hand, and he often made up this or that excuse to disappear somewhere constantly. There was a time it was raining heavily. The two of us were drinking together when he said his younger brother had an emergency, so he apologized to me and said he needed to go home right away, then left. Han Sim was a bit surprised because Captain Kang was an orphan, so how could he have a biological brother? Chun-soo also just learned of this matter for the first time and continued telling the story. In general, I remember that day clearly because a major case occurred in the neighboring area. It was Chief Jun's case. While sitting drinking waiting for Captain Kang to return, outside police and ambulances were rushing by noisily. At that time, I saw Captain Kang walk in soaking wet like a drowned rat, looking somewhat unwell, but he didn't say anything and just kept drinking continuously. Han Sim went to the pub Chun-soo mentioned, only then realizing it was located right on the shortcut to Chief Jun's house. After making the decision, Inspector Tae went to meet the homicide squad at the Hangyang station. He gathered everyone and announced, I am the captain of the special investigation team starting today. The importance of this case should be understood by everyone. This is a serial case where 6 people have been murdered. The methods of committing the crime and the causes of death are all different. Do not forget that the murders are still ongoing, so act quickly when possible. To better understand the case, Inspector Anna from the Seoul station will explain. So Anna began projecting each puzzle piece and spoke. The man with his eyes sewn shut holding a camera is Kang Hoon. The sheep shooting a human-shaped doll is Chief Jun. The woman holding cotton candy whispering is Miyeon. The man wearing an armband dancing is Chi Mok. The clown crushing a sandcastle is Junsu. The man participating in a hamburger eating contest is Cho Jae-in. In this puzzle, it seems the different images represent the victims. When we piece them together, we can see it forms a square consisting of a total of 9 puzzle pieces, and the remaining number of pieces is 3, meaning there are 3 more murders about to happen. At this moment, Inspector Tai spoke up. You all heard clearly. Finding clues in the shortest time is the way to save those 3 victims, so act quickly. As for Inspector Anna, come see me for a moment. So Ina went to Chief Hoon's office. Both Inspector Tae and Chief Hoon believed that her joining the investigation team would cause a lot of gossip because she was a relative of the victim and should have been someone asked to recuse herself. But because this was the initial case, both allowed her to participate. Ina nodded gratefully because they gave her the opportunity. As for Inspector Tae, he sadly apologized apologized for not being able to completely resolve it 10 years ago. The next morning, Anna returned to the psychological profiling team to meet her teammates, then began analyzing the killer's behavior. Everyone thought the killer didn't expect someone to take the blame, but for some unknown reason, started sending puzzle pieces, starting from Mion's case. Ina was also curious because in the first two cases, the killer had left puzzle pieces at the scene, but no one noticed, so eventually they stopped the killings. Yet 10 years later, they started sending puzzle pieces to her. Everyone thought the killer might have only found out recently, perhaps someone she recently got acquainted with. After the meeting, Anna went to the bar to meet Han Sim. In Jeju Island, a total of 4 people came to see me. Among them, no one is a recent acquaintance. You are suspecting Captain Kang, aren't you? Han Sim immediately said, there is the rookie I often bring along. Are you sure the killer is among the people who went to Jeju Island? Because Captain Kang was the police officer in charge of Kang Hoon's case, he also appeared in the area, an 8-minute walk from Chief Jun's crime scene. Captain Kang had also known Mion from before. He was also the one who steered the investigation direction and mentioned the missing resident card. Then suddenly, an unforeseen variable appeared like Chimok's case because Jung Hee was the one who took action instead, and when Chimok's call history had Junsu, he ignored it without mentioning much, probably wanting to buy time until you went to meet Junsu and ruin the plan. He must have dropped the handkerchief in that haste. For Cho Jae-in's case, we have to confirm if he was on Jeju Island the day of the murder. Anna thought that most of it was circumstantial evidence. They must find concrete evidence or an eyewitness. Do you know what Cho Jae-in said before he died? On the morning of the incident, when hearing the names of the puzzle victims, Cho Jae-in just helplessly said, it's all because of one city, and the one who built it up was me, so eventually my turn will come too. I wonder if you are living in one city apartment now? Seeing Anna look bewildered, Cho Jae-in understood that Chief Jun didn't tell his niece much, while he himself understood Anna's parents very well. A while later, Han Sim went straight to Inspector Tae to report his suspicions about Captain Kang. There was no guarantee yet, so currently he just asked Inspector Tae to approve a warrant for him. While the team was privately discussing Cho Jae-in's case, everyone noticed Han Sim was nowhere to be seen and wondered. Inspector Tae then said, I sent him out to run a private errand. Finishing his words, he stood up and ended the meeting. Han Sim was driving back to the headquarters when he ran into Captain Kang. He asked Han Sim why he went investigating alone and what he went looking for someone at the Mapo station for. So Han Sim quickly said he was just doing some general investigation. It wasn't the time to say yet. Captain Kang replied, if you suspect me of being the killer, then so be it. As for me, I'll just do my job. Saying that, he turned his back and walked away. That evening, Aina drove home to find Captain Kang parked nearby waiting. Ina quickly said, doing that will make me suspect you even more. You know there are many security cameras around recently, right? Captain Kang calmly said, is turning yourself in and getting locked up that interesting? But I didn't come here for that. Chief Jun said on the night Kang Hoon died 10 years ago, his niece was on the apartment rooftop. If those words are true, I wonder if you saw anything that day. When Aina shook her head, saying she couldn't remember anything, Captain Kang just instructed her to notify him if she remembered anything. The next day, Han Sim received the warrant with Captain Kang's flight history attached, and indeed, he was also present on Jeju Island on the day of Cho Jae-in's murder. While reviewing it, the rookie appeared, so Han Sim turned and said he wanted to ask for a favor. He prepared the interrogation room and called Ina and Go-won over, then had Go-won hypnotize Inspector Choi so he could remember what really happened at Jun-su's crime scene. Having successfully returned to the moment he saw the handkerchief, Inspector Choi began describing what he saw and felt. At that time, he saw someone lingering near the desk. They sat down, then stood up to pick up the old handkerchief. Initially, the rookie only remembered the watch, but when looking closer, he realized the person picking up the handkerchief was actually Captain Kang. Han Sim felt helpless. He inherently didn't want to believe it, but still had to. As soon as he ran into Captain Kang in the hallway, Captain Kang immediately pulled the old handkerchief out of his pocket and said, you're looking for this, aren't you? I killed all those people. Han Sim looked at Captain Kang, holding out his hands to be handcuffed in front of him. Feeling overwhelmingly frustrated, he could only handcuff his respected captain and say, Captain Kang, you are under arrest as a suspect in the Jigsaw murder case. You have the right to remain silent and call a lawyer if you wish. Everyone on the team was shocked, speechless, witnessing this scene. After that, Han Sim began the process of gathering information through interrogation, but halfway through, he got so angry he quickly asked, I really wanted to believe you weren't the killer. For the past 10 years, have you just been toying with me? Captain Kang calmly confessed to all his crimes, making Han Sim even more uncomfortable, pressing him, asking why did you kill those people, and why confess when there are still 3 puzzle pieces left? Captain Kang quickly replied, call the newsroom, and I will explain everything. From the method I used to commit the crimes to my next moves for the last 3 puzzle pieces, I confessed, because I felt tired and didn't want to continue anymore. After hearing the news, Chief Hoon immediately went to meet Inspector Tae, but even Inspector Tae couldn't understand the reason why Captain Kang murdered Chief Jun like that. Ina returned home feeling more relieved than usual, but as she stood in the living room, she heard the door latch click. Yet when Anna turned to look, there was no one there. The homicide squad entered the passcode into Captain Kang's private home. Stepping inside, they saw teenagers' belongings everywhere. Everything looked like a miniature dormitory. Before their surprise could fade, several teenage boys and girls emerged from the rooms. Because Captain Kang still refused to open his mouth, she went in to try interrogating him. She was very happy to finally meet the killer, so she immediately said, "For the past 10 years I've struggled to remember everything, sometimes even wondering if I was the killer myself, but now I've finally met the true killer. On the day my uncle died, what were you thinking standing behind me, and why didn't you kill me?" Captain Kang calmly replied, "I will not answer any further. If you call the newsroom, I will speak in detail." In the end, Ina couldn't extract any information. The special investigation team held a meeting to compile Captain Kang's information. Because his parents died early, he lived in an orphanage until adulthood, even giving up his current house to 18-year-old kids. Because they were over the age to stay at the orphanage, his call history showed nothing special other than calling acquaintances. The handkerchief had been sent to the National Forensic Service for analysis. After hearing the report, Inspector Tae decided to continue investigating further because currently there was only a confession and legal hypnosis results. Both of these would be hard for the court to accept as evidence. Han Sim interjected, saying, "Why demand to meet the newsroom? Everyone knows he's not that kind of person." Anna curiously asked if the newsroom was called. What would be the worst-case scenario? This is not an ordinary case, so I think we need to prepare for both scenarios. So Han Sim went to the interrogation room, lit a cigarette for Captain Kang to smoke, and said, "I tried to think of the reason you did this, but no matter how I think, I can't figure it out. Do you remember when you first came to the Hanyang station? The very first words you said to the team members, you asked the name of the son of the person protesting alone in front of the main gate, then told everyone not to forget the victims. Did the person who said, 'Don't forget the victims,' manually create victims himself?" Captain Kang still firmly remained silent until the newsroom arrived, so Han Sim just asked where Captain Kang's current residence was. After getting the information, Ina drove to a bustling boarding house area. She went inside Captain Kang's small rented room. Everywhere there were photos of him taken with the children. Captain Kang even carefully stored away the photos he received from the grown-up orphans who had achieved their own successes. Ina looked through them for a while, then thoughtfully stared at the small fish tank placed neatly in the room. After that, she brought the fish tank back to Han Sim's apartment. Seeing Mr. Curry sulking like he lost his soul, Ina quickly said, "These are the fish Captain Kang asked me to feed." "You've never been to Captain Kang's house, have you? The letters and photos sent by the kids at the orphanage are all carefully stored in a box by him. You told me you could face this straightforwardly. Why are you sitting here lamenting like this now?" Han Sim helplessly replied, "Is Captain Kang really the killer? Why do I keep feeling like his confession is akin to self-harm?" Ina quickly asked further, "So have you been to the orphanage Captain Kang used to sponsor?" A while later, both went to the orphanage to meet Ju Hoon and asked him since when he knew Captain Kang and how the two met again after leaving the orphanage. Ju Hoon quickly replied, "We grew up together at the orphanage. At that time, he was quite introverted and shy. After turning 18, he said he had things to do and left. As for me, I stayed at the orphanage to work until now. After passing the police academy exam, he returned here. I was a bit surprised because he had changed a lot. After entering the police academy, he became much tougher. His beliefs and goals also became clearer. He said there was someone he absolutely had to find, which was why he became a police officer. But that matter is a private, personal matter, so I cannot tell." After becoming a police officer, he regularly sponsored the children at this orphanage. Han Sim curiously asked if Captain Kang had anyone he needed to protect, so Ju Hoon thought for a while before answering that the people he needed to protect were probably the children he had sponsored, because he considered those children more precious than anyone else. After gathering the information, Han Sim brought the list of children Captain Kang had sponsored back, faced him in the interrogation room, and pressed him, "In this list of 21 people, is there any child you're trying to protect?" Currently, the investigation team is investigating each person one by one, so speak up quickly. Who is the real killer? Captain Kang quickly said, "There is no child involved in this case. Why do that when I am the killer and I will confess everything? So quickly call the newsroom because there isn't much time left." Han Sim got even angrier, saying, "If you keep quiet, don't you think there will be more cases happening? There are still 3 puzzle pieces left and more people will die. I ask you one more time, who is the true killer?" Seeing Captain Kang still stubborn stubbornly refusing to answer. Before leaving, Han Sim said, "If more people die, it's because of you. Keep this in mind carefully." Finishing his words, Han Sim returned to the room where everyone was standing observing. Both he and Anna believed Captain Kang wasn't the killer. Ina said that because Captain Kang didn't know about the day my uncle died, the killer stood behind me. And moreover, a person so selfless as to give up his house for others to live in would have no reason to commit serial murders. He threw himself out to create a diversion. We must find the person Captain Kang is protecting. A while later, Han Sim went to the detention center, led Captain Kang outside, uncuffed him, and said, "Your alibis are plentiful, so you are not the killer. There are still 3 puzzle pieces left, and we have to catch the true killer. So don't get in the way." From the chief to Inspector Tay, they have all agreed. So withdraw from this case. Finishing his words, Han Sim returned Captain Kang's phone and walked back inside, leaving him standing there bewildered, not knowing what to do. Captain Kang drove back to the boarding house, while the rookie secretly drove behind him, tailing him and reporting to Han Sim. At the same time, Anna went to the psychological counseling hospital to meet Twalad. In Chan, even though he said he had an appointment today so he couldn't talk, she still innocently followed him, sat next to the driver's seat, and asked questions. 5 years ago, my counselor told me there was a talented junior doctor, so she asked me to come try meeting him. And that's how we met, right? So before being introduced, did you know me? Did you ask that person to introduce us? Or was it because that senior told you to meet me? In Chan quickly replied, "It was a long time ago, so I don't remember anything." But when Ina asked about the patient 10 years ago who killed his father and doubted whether it was truly a patient's story or, in Chan's story, he quickly said, "I was wrong, okay? Because I shouldn't have told you those things. Who I have an appointment with today is also none of your business. No matter how close we are, I can't tell you everything. Now where do I drop you off because I have to go?" The next day, Aina called Han Sim to discuss Captain Kang. Perhaps he already knew he was being followed, just didn't know when he would make his next move. Probably bewildered because he was set free. What connection does protecting someone have with the newsroom? While deducing, the rookie called to report Captain Kang had just left the boarding house, so Han Sim quickly relayed that news to Anna and set off immediately afterward. Captain Kang drove while watching the rearview mirror. He knew full well someone was tailing him. After tailing for a while, Inspector Choi called Han Sim saying Captain Kang's car had entered the highway heading to Chuncheon. So Han Sim quickly instructed the rookie not to be careless and to stick close to the target. Meanwhile, at the reed field, Mayor Kim was waiting for Sang Baeom to go hunting together. This land was owned by Sang Baeom, so he often came here to hunt pheasants and wild boars. Today he also invited Mayor Kim to discuss expanding the Greenbelt. Mayor Kim quickly reassured him that a highway would be built through here soon. So, sooner or later the Greenbelt would be expanded. After that, both started shooting down the male pheasants. After a while, Captain Kang drove to the reed field. The rookie also got out and trailed behind him, but while walking, he heard a gunshot, so he got startled and crouched down. When he looked up, there was no sign of Captain Kang anywhere. Before he could gather himself, Captain Kang rushed from out of nowhere holding a reed stalk, putting him in a chokehold. Waiting until the rookie passed out from lack of oxygen, Captain Kang took the gun from his pocket. Captain Kang fumbled along the direction of the gunshot, then hid in the bushes observing, and saw someone aiming at Sang Baeom. Captain Kang immediately fired his gun, running to stop it, but ended up taking a bullet from Sang Baeom. At this moment, Han Sim also just arrived. Hearing the gunshot, he immediately drew his gun, cautiously following the sound, and found Captain Kang and another person in the distance, lying helpless from being shot. Han Sim panicked and called for an ambulance to the reed field, while Captain Kang, dying, said, "I wanted to stop it, but I couldn't. This is all my fault. Miyeon, Chimok, and Junsu were all bastards. Even so, this is all my fault. That child is not to blame." When Han Sim asked who that child was, Captain Kang only mentioned the names Sindong and Sejin before breathing his last breath. Han Sim burst into tears in agony, trying to shake him awake, but it was too late. When Aina arrived, the scene had been locked down by the police. Captain Kang's body was also loaded into the ambulance. She walked into the middle of the field and saw Han Sim sitting in a daze, so she could only pat Mr. Curry's shoulder to console him. Han Sim sighed, stood up, and said, "Sindong and Sejin were Captain Kang's final dying words." Hearing that, Ina quickly replied, "We're late again this time. Now let's make the killer make the first move." While Sang Baeom was rushed to the emergency room, Ina sat researching the Sindong apartment complex that Captain Kang had mentioned. Junsu owned the DH Construction conglomerate, while Cho Jae-in used to work for Sangjin Construction. So what does that have to do with Kang Hoon's death? Because originally he only worked at the newspaper editorial office. At the same time, the special investigation team was compiling information about Sang Baeom. He used to be a chief prosecutor and was currently an advisor to the trio law firm. It seemed the killer knew the victim's hunting habits. It's just not understandable how Captain Kang knew the field field was the scene and came to intervene. His phone had also been taken by the killer. According to Mayor Kim's recount at the scene, Captain Kang suddenly fired his pistol into the sky, then ran towards Sangbeom. Mayor Kim saw that and got so scared he ran away. After the meeting, Han Sim went to the hospital to Sangbeom's room to check. At this time, the DBC broadcasting station also publicized the news about the jigsaw puzzle case. After watching the news, Chief Hoon angrily asked who leaked the news. Ina remained completely silent because she was the one who did it. Ina knew the killer murdered because they wanted to say something, so they had to hand them the mic to speak. Only then would they know who was speaking, and it was also what Captain Kang desired. Han Sim was sitting outside the hospital room when he received a call notifying him that the 7th puzzle piece had just been delivered. He panicked and ran into the hospital room to check on Sangbeom, but strangely, his vital signs were still stable. Nothing unusual yet. Han Sim listened to Ina, turned on the TV to watch the news, and saw the news that a few minutes ago the 7th puzzle piece was delivered to the broadcasting station. At this moment, the machines began blaring alarms loudly, and Sangbeom convulsed continuously. The doctors hurriedly ran inside to perform emergency procedures but were too late, so Anna suggested they both go to the DBC station to get the puzzle piece first. After asking the station staff where the puzzle piece came from, she said an express courier delivered it. The express puzzle piece along with cash was placed at a designated location, so they didn't know who sent it. After that, both went to the pub to sit and deduce. Han Sim spoke up, saying that on the day of the incident, Captain Kang had appeared at One City. His call history showed nothing special, but according to cell tower location data, Captain Kang's number appeared within a 200-man radius of One City. At that time, I called to report Junsu died of insulin poisoning, and the location where he received the call was at One City. Could it be that the owner of the handkerchief was there all along? Everything leads to the One City apartment building. The next day, Ina went to the reed field to reconstruct the crime scene. The killer knew Sangbeom frequently went hunting, so they had prepared a hunting rifle in advance, exactly like their previous methods of operation. But why fail at killing? They didn't even confirm whether the person was dead, but leaving while the target was still breathing had absolutely no reason behind it. The killer completely didn't foresee Captain Kang's intervention. And why didn't the killer murder both of them? Perhaps because the killer didn't want Captain Kang to die and tried to save him. The inability to kill Sangbeom cleanly was due to Captain Kang. Ultimately, what relationship did these two have? At the same time, the special investigation team was having a meeting. The reason Sangbeom died was due to poisoning. Someone had swapped the medication in the IV drip, probably disguising themselves as medical staff and entering the room to inject the drug. The killer was someone with medical knowledge. Inspector Tay immediately ordered a check of the hospital medical staff list. Surely someone had seen a person not in the photos, as well as cross-referenced with those in the security cameras. Meanwhile, Ina went to the psychological counseling hospital, asked the receptionist, and found out the clinic was closed for the rest of the day, so she casually went into it now. In Chan's room to wait, Ina went inside and took a closer look at the painting hanging on the wall. Only then did she notice the small letter H marked in the bottom corner of the painting. It was like a signature Chan left behind. So Ina just took the magnetic keycard for his apartment and left. Han Sim was taping photos of Sung-do and Chan to the board when someone called the police station, their voice full of panic, asking, the puzzle piece appearing on the news. How do you know it was sent by the killer? After asking, the other end immediately hung up. It turned out the caller was Chan. Han Sim immediately reported it back to Inspector Tay. After that, the special investigation team tracked the location to the phone booth, then split up to look for security cameras. Han Sim saw a car parked in a nearby alley equipped with a dash cam, so he and the rookie quickly retrieved the memory card from that camera to check. And the person standing at the phone booth at that time was none other than Chan. At the same time, Ina drove to the apartment of the two psychologists. She used the magnetic keycard to open the door to Chan's apartment. Stepping inside, the surroundings were filled entirely with paintings. Every painting was marked with a small letter H in the bottom corner. Even the new puzzle piece Ina just received had the small letter H on it. At this moment, Han Sim called to say Chan knew the killer. Ina had guessed it because the person who drew the puzzle pictures was Chan. He might have drawn it for someone else. Previously, she kept thinking the killer drew the pictures themselves, which was why she personally came to Chan's house to check. But it turned out not to be here. This place felt like Captain Kang's house, not the killer's residence. Finishing her words, Ina hung up the phone and picked up a photo of Chan and Sung-do to look at. The first time she'd received a puzzle piece was from Myeon's case. The ones who made Ena talk about the story of that night 10 years ago were also these two psychologists. When she sank to the bottom, Sung-do was the one who pulled her up, and above of all, was also the one who understood Ina the best. Ina opened the door and walked over to Sung-doo's apartment, seeing the door already open welcomingly. Walking inside, there were children's toys everywhere, even stacked up covering the entire house, leaving only a pathway. Proceeding further, Ina found a small yellow package placed neatly on the bed. She opened the package to look, and it was the 8th puzzle piece. After that, In-chan was called into the interrogation room. He said that Sung-doo asked me to draw that picture 10 years ago, but not as a jigsaw puzzle, just a normal picture. She couldn't possibly be a killer, right? Just as he finished speaking, Ina walked in, placed the puzzle piece on the table, and asked, "What does this puzzle piece mean?" In-chan picked it up and replied, "Its meaning, I really don't know. She just told me to draw it like this." Is it really true that Sung-doo caused all this? The special investigation team quickly locked down the apartment, as well as the psychological hospital, to look for Sung-doo. Han Sim and the rookie also checked the security cameras in the parking lot, but couldn't trace Sung-doo's whereabouts at all. Chief Hoon was irritably scolding when the team received a call, reporting that Assemblyman Kim, the former Minister of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport, had gone missing. Anna quickly took out her phone to check his information, then went outside to talk to Han Sim. "When I profiled the killer, do you know how I imagined the killer's house? It would be a clean house like a hotel. Besides built-in furniture, there would be nothing, a space with only minimal belongings. Yet now it's completely the opposite. We must definitely find out who Sung-doo truly is. Only then will we know where she went and who the remaining victim is. I will go meet In-chan to ask." Both went to the interrogation room to meet In-chan. Upon seeing them, he asked how Ina knew I drew the pictures. Ina quickly replied, "Because every picture hides the same initial." "But why did you help her? You two lived together and truly knew nothing." In-chan helplessly said, "Honestly, I know nothing at all. As you can see, our living space was also divided into 2 separate areas. From freshman year of pre-med until now, she is the only one who knows my secret. Now I'll just state bluntly that I am gay. Anyway, Sung-doo and I interned together at a hospital. After opening the clinic in one city, Sung-doo actively offered me the position of co-director. I also never asked why she opened the hospital in that area. Just simply thought this was the most expensive apartment in Hanning, which was suitable." Han Sim quickly asked about the relationship between Sung-doo and Captain Kang. In-chan shook his head, saying he never heard it mentioned, but back when she was in the police specialty program, he came looking for her a few times. That was the first time someone came looking for Sung-doo, and a police officer at that. So at the time, there were some strange rumors in the hospital. Some said a patient was suing. Some said it was an ex-lover. During that period, she took a year off from school, but I don't know the reason because, after all, Sung-doo didn't have many friends. Perhaps Miss Ina is the closest person to her. But I heard Corporal Naji went to middle school with Sung-doo, and not long ago came to our hospital for a checkup. But because she felt awkward getting counseling from an old classmate, I conducted the counseling. So Ina went to meet Naji to ask about Sung-doo. Naji quickly said, "I'm not close friends with her or anything. We just happened to be in the same 8th grade class. That girl was quiet, with a weird personality, so she was a bit hard to approach. But there is one thing that I still remember until now. On the day the whole class had to go on a field trip, those who didn't go had to stay at school for self-study. At that time, only Sung-doo and I stayed at school. That was also the first time we talked to each other. I asked if she didn't go on the field trip because she wanted to study, and she said it was because she didn't want to go to the amusement park. She recounted that at age 7, she got lost in the park after her mom abandoned her. So from then on she had to grow up in an orphanage. At the time, I was a bit surprised because Sung-doo told those things in a very calm manner. I suggested going to the amusement park to look for clues, and she just stared at me and asked if I knew what she would do if she found her mom. She said she would kill her and tear her to pieces. After chatting, Ina got in the car and recounted everything to Han Sim. Captain Kang and Sung-doo might have been in the same orphanage together. What's certain is that 10 years ago, while studying her specialty, Captain Kang went to meet Sung-doo, and ever since then, she has been planning to commit murder. A short while later, Anna went to the missing persons office to ask the old man there to search for a child named Lee Sung-doo, who went missing between the years 1995 and 2000. But when he entered the name, there was absolutely no information. After searching using the keyword Dream Park, there was no child named Lee Sung-doo missing at the park at that time. There was only a 7-year-old girl named Lawn. Anna realized that Sung-doo might have changed her name, so she looked at the family contact notes on the missing child poster. It listed the family's address as Sejin Eatery in Sindong Market. Meanwhile, Han Sim went to meet Ju Hoon at the orphanage. He showed him the photo of the girl missing 20 years ago, then asked if this child had ever been at this orphanage. You also mentioned that upon graduating from the police academy, Captain Kang said he wanted to find someone, but couldn't say because it was a private matter. So, can you tell me now? Ju Hoon shook his head head and replied, I do not know who this child is. As for that private matter, hiding it now is pointless. The person Captain Kang wanted to find is the Sijin eatery owner's daughter. Where he used to work was an eatery in Sindong Market 20 years ago. One city is now built on that very land. That owner passed away in an accident 20 years ago. You were probably young then, so you didn't know, as it was a massive case. Captain Kang almost died back then too. That evening, Han Sim drove to one city where Ina was standing. The two just looked at each other in silence, then looked up at the one city apartment building together, the place where all misfortune and tragedy occurred 20 years ago. At that time, people in Sindong Market fiercely protested the redevelopment. Captain Kang worked part-time at the eatery in the market. Sometimes Chi Mok would come to cause trouble, advising him to give up early whilst he still had the chance. But Captain Kang at that time held his ground. He didn't want to leave, but didn't resist much either. Mian was the owner of a clothing shop in the market then. She constantly brought contracts to the eatery to meet Mrs. Nam Suk to entice her to give up and leave this market area. Both compensation and relocation money would be paid in full, but Nam Suk cared nothing for the money. She just wanted to continue trading until she found her daughter. After all, she had held on to the market for 20 years, so no matter what, Nam Suk would not leave. If the remaining people in the market held their ground together, then certainly no one would dare to start construction. Mian felt helpless as she could not persuade Nam Suk. Upon leaving, she even muttered curses under her breath, calling them vermin. Mian went outside and said to Chi Mok, I couldn't persuade that Sejin eatery owner. The people in rows 2 and 3 have all colluded too. Why don't you bring bulldozers to level this place right now? Just do it by the law, and there will be no problem. Chi Mok shook his head because this wasn't the 80s. If they did that, it would certainly blow up into a massive issue. At the same time, Nam Suk lamented to Captain Kang, that Mi-yeon girl is completely on the redevelopment side now. We treated her so well, yet she acts like this now. You should stop too and go find a new job. I cannot keep you here forever. At the very least, you must earn a living. Captain Kang disagreed because he didn't want to abandon the boss here either. Junsu was absolutely furious and called to berate Chi Mok because it still wasn't resolved yet. He warned that if it wasn't finished within this week, Chi Mok wouldn't get a single penny of the deposit or bonus. There was no other way. So that evening, Chi Mok dragged his gang to Sindong Market, bringing petrol cans and wooden bats to suppress the people in the market. They just needed to act, then make a call to the police so that they would silently turn a blind eye. Just like that, the whole gang stormed inside the market. They set fires and forcibly beat and dragged out anyone who resisted. Chi Mok and his underlings went to the upper floors. They splashed petrol and set fire to every single zone. Captain Kang and Nam Suk were sleeping in the eatery. They were also violently assaulted and dragged away by them. Chi Mok angrily shoved Nam Suk against the glass door and said, all of this is because of you. When we spoke nicely, you should have just signed the paper, yet you were stubborn and refused to listen to others. Whilst inside the market was chaotic, the police force just stood outside. They even received orders from superiors just to stand and watch. The fire raged more fiercely, so Captain Kang hurriedly stood up to run, unaware that Nam Suk remained stubborn and absolutely refused to leave. After a brief struggle, both she and Chi Mok were crushed beneath a burning iron sheet. Chi Mok was dragged outside by his underlings, whilst Nam Suk was completely engulfed in the sea of flames. Meanwhile, Junsu sat calmly in his office. He called Cho Jae-in to report the news. Cho Jae-in joyfully looked at the yacht advert in his hand. Because the problem was finally resolved, there was no need to worry about being exposed later. Since they had colluded with the Hangang police station, there were no worries. When everything was settled, Cho Jae-in called Chief Jun to ask him to cover up the eatery owner's death in the fire. Assemblyman Kim was also very pleased after witnessing this scene. He even called to praise Chief Jun for doing a very good job. Sang Baeom also benefited because he closed the market death case by denying the citizens the right to prosecute, and Kang Hoon received the task of writing an article, writing about the eatery owner in a negative light and shifting all the blame onto her to manipulate public opinion. Thanks to the crimes of those people, one city was built. Ina returned home after a completely exhausting day. She opened the door and walked into the living room. Then she saw someone standing right behind her. Sung-do appeared calmly, approached her and said, Ina, could you please turn around and look at me? Ina hesitated for a moment, then decided to turn her head back. 10 years ago, at the university hospital, Captain Kang went to meet Sung-do to deliver Mrs. Nam Suk's belongings to her. He said these were the belongings her mother left behind. Because you changed your name, it took me quite some time to search. Sung-do flipped through the notebook to look and asked, why do you have this item? And what relationship did my mother have with you? Captain Kang quickly replied, your mother and I worked together at an eatery. Your mother always desperately hoped to find her daughter, but when Sung-do asked where her mother was currently. Captain Kang became silent, completely unable to answer. Returning to the present, when Anna turned back to look, Sung-do smiled and said, "It seems you will not need counseling anymore." Anna trembled and said, "It was exactly this face. You must have been very happy recently, haven't you? Watching me doubt myself and rack my brains solving puzzles. You must have found that extremely interesting. So who is the next victim? Assemblyman Kim, right?" Sung-do shook her head and replied, "No. Instead, I feel very worried. I wanted you to keep up, neither too fast nor too slow, but you have done very well and brilliantly. Follow me, and I will let you know. If you don't want to, you can arrest me here, or just kill me." Finishing her words, Sung-do went outside and got in the car to wait. Ina just got in the car and buckled up when Han Sim called. Seeing Sung-do hold her hand out, Ina obediently handed her phone over to her. Sung-do rolled down the window to throw the phone onto the road, then drove the car away. Han Sim couldn't reach Ina, so he immediately reported it to Inspector Tae. Sung-do drove while saying, "Do you know that originally no one cared about the puzzle piece's meaning and why people died? At that time, I felt it was useless if no one understood, so I stopped. Who would have thought I would coincidentally meet you later? The child I left behind that night appeared right before my eyes. Do you know how surprised I was?" Anna turned to ask the reason why she didn't kill her. "Moreover, Captain Kang wasn't involved at all yet still died because of you." Sung-do quickly replied, "I didn't kill you, Ina. It's true because you weren't involved. But Captain Kang absolutely did not die by my hands. That handkerchief was my mother's handkerchief. Did you know?" Previously, upon finding the handkerchief, Captain Kang brought it to meet Sung-do and said, "I hoped you would live a normal life like everyone else. And I know your mother desperately wanted that too. So please stop, because what good is revenge? Just say it out loud. I will not record it or anything. I understand your life has endured much suffering, because I myself have experienced it too. I understand your hatred and indignation. It is still not too late, because I will take responsibility for everything. As for you, forget everything and live your own life." Sung-do calmly answered, "It is already too late for everything. You just need to continue doing your job. You do not understand what I have been through. How exactly do you intend to take responsibility? Because this is the exact life that I want. I don't need you to step up and do anything." After hearing the story, she could only say, if Sung-do's mother hadn't taken Captain Kang in, and if he had died in place of your mother, or if Captain Kang hadn't found you in your university years, then none of this would have happened, right? Sung-do quickly replied, "You feel regret just like Captain Kang, don't you? Always full of what-ifs. But no matter what, this was bound to happen eventually anyway. Let us go and admire the night scenery together." At the same time, Han Sim went to Ana's house looking for her and found her phone thrown on the side of the road. An arrest warrant was immediately issued. Everyone tracked the route of Ana's car and confirmed her car was heading towards Juma Road. Han Sim realized that was the road leading to One City. Perhaps the killer wanted to end it where everything started, because One City was built on the ashes of the Sindong market fire 20 years ago. Meanwhile, Sung-do drove into the One City basement. At this moment, Ana turned to ask, "Is there no other way besides killing people? And where are the remaining victims?" So Sung-do immediately replied, "Do you think there is any other way? When I struck, not a single person apologized to me, even to beg for their lives. They should have said sorry, but not a single person said those words, because they had completely forgotten the name Lee Nam-suk." Finishing her words, Sung-do handed the access card to Ina, then continued, "The victim is inside apartment 5802, and the puzzle's final piece is in there too." Ina hurriedly took the access card and ran to the lift. At the same time, the investigation team arrived at One City and were preparing to enter. When Ina reached apartment 5802, she only saw a yellow package, but the victim was nowhere to be seen. She opened the bag to look at the puzzle piece. Then outside, someone had just jumped down. Han Sim was walking in the lobby with the team. When the rookie was almost crushed by that falling person, he could only stand frozen in sheer terror, with his face completely covered in blood, then looked down at Assemblyman Kim lying in a pool of blood. This time the whole group was late again, and they could not save the victim. Anna helplessly ran up to the rooftop with the puzzle piece in her hand. Then Han Sim ran up behind her, uttering words of reproach. "What were you thinking, following her all the way here? And where is Sung-do right now?" Ina replied, "She has disappeared somewhere again. I thought I might be in time to save the victim, so I followed even knowing she could be lying. She probably sought me out just to see this helpless expression. This is the final puzzle piece. I found it inside apartment 5802. Looking at the pitch-black drawing on the puzzle piece, Han Sim became even more confused. Because he did not know what it meant, Naji thought that Sindong Market was burnt down, burnt into a pile of ashes, so this puzzle piece might relate to the fire. While Sung-do was taking a taxi on the motorway, Han Sim and Anna were driving whilst deducing the meaning of the final puzzle piece. After 1987, redeveloping area demolition was given to private companies. From there, demolition service companies were born, and its very beginning was Ju-Dan Company, founded by Jun-soo. From the early to mid-1990s, they nearly monopolized the demolition of redevelopment areas in Seoul. They used every tactic, including violence if possible, so their bad reputation spread far and wide. After they caused a few social scandals, companies were also hesitant to award contracts to Joksan anymore. So Jun-soo founded a subsidiary under someone else's name. That was Dasan Company, run by Chi Mo. Chief Jun was also involved and suppressed some of their crimes. In exchange for covering up the fire incident, he received 3 apartments in one city, but not under his own name, rather, under his niece's name. In the year his niece entered high school, Chief Jun sold the 3 apartments to buy a high-end house in Hanamdong. Ina's parents were also members of the Redevelopment Association at Sindong Market, owning up to 10 stalls. Ultimately, how far does this story still reach, and when exactly will it end? Only the final victim remains, but neither could think of anyone else related to the fire. Whilst looking at the puzzle drawing to deduce, the rookie called Han Sim. He said he had confirmed Sung-doo's final destination, because at the time Assemblyman Kim fell from the rooftop, the one city car park security camera recorded it. The scene of Sung-doo getting into a luxury taxi and leaving. Later, the taxi driver also stated he waited for her. He waited in front of a funeral home in Namyangju. That was also where Captain Kang's body was laid. So Han Sim and Ina split up to look for clues. Han Sim went to the funeral home, whilst Ina went to Dream Park. When Han Sim arrived at the funeral home, he checked the security cameras and saw Sung-doo standing in front of the funeral home, soaking in the rain for a full 30 minutes, just standing there without entering, then walking away. Meanwhile, Ina arrived at Dream Park and saw Sung-doo sitting in a daze inside the Ferris wheel cabin. Seeing the anti-nausea medicine box in her hand, Ina quickly said, "You coward, do not end it like this." Sung-doo calmly said, "My mother and I used to ride this together. Because I was too little then, there were many rides I couldn't go on. I rode the carousel, the dodgems, and even bought cotton candy to eat. I stood here waiting for my mother many times, without knowing she was waiting for me at the eatery. Every day I imagined my mother's face when she would appear before my eyes one day. Imagining she would cry then laugh when she saw me. She would say she searched for me for a long time and did not abandon me at all. I also wanted to say I had searched for her for ages, but I could not remember that eatery at all." Just as she finished speaking, the whole park lit up, and Ina also spoke up. "Now I also know the story of my uncle and my parents. Perhaps I am no different from the main characters in the puzzle pieces, but I wonder about one thing. Why was Nocturne No 15 playing in Mion's car? Does it carry any special meaning?" Sung-doo quickly replied, "It is not your fault, because you are so sensitive, you cannot sleep. Do not blame yourself too much. Track No 15 was not played by me, but Mion played it right after getting in the car. I intended to turn it off, but it was too beautiful. I personally haven't had many chances to listen to music. I have lived without knowing about those things. The music was so beautiful, it made me forget I got in that car to commit murder." Anna advised Sung-doo that it was still not too late. She could still live and enjoy those beautiful things now. So Sung-doo tiredly said, "I have finished my work and no longer want to live. There is no longer any reason to live either, because I cannot bear myself anymore." At this moment, Han Sim ran up raising his gun, slowly approaching Ina's position, then demanded. Sung-doo put her hands on her head and step out of the Ferris wheel cabin. Sung-doo immediately said, "I really hate human beings. For what reason do people try so hard to live?" Finishing her words, Sung-doo took out a lighter. She lit the Ferris wheel cabin on fire, then threw the lighter onto the cabin floor. At this moment, the entire Ferris wheel began burning fiercely, while Sung-doo just calmly said, "Enna, why did they kill people? Just to create a living place for others." Just like that, Sung-doo stepped inside the cabin and immolated herself. Ina could only stand helplessly watching, with streams of tears rolling down her face. She and Han Sim just silently watched the Ferris wheel burning right before their eyes. Afterwards, both returned to the interrogation room to take statements. Just like 10 years ago, Ina also said she remembered nothing at all. Han Sim silently looked at Anna's nod, then decided to take his hands off the laptop and stop taking the statement. Afterwards, Ina drove back home, went into her room and closed the door. As for Han Sim, he went to the funeral home to see Captain Kang off for the last time. Ever since then, Han Sim stopped by Ina's house every day, bringing a coffee exactly to her liking and handing it to the housekeeper. But Ina was still locking herself in her room, refusing to go outside, waiting until evening when the housekeeper left, before coming down to the living room, then staring blankly at the cups of coffee. The coffee Han Sim sent every single day. The next day, Ina went to the office to hand in her resignation, handing it to Go-eun. But Go-eun just said, "I will put this aside, so whenever you change your mind, just come back." Ina bowed her head to thank the captain, then pulled her suitcase and left the office. After that, she went to Dream Park, standing and looking at the place where Sung-doo immolated herself, whilst deeply lost in thought, Hansim appeared. He walked closer and mentioned a new murder case, a murder case that happened recently, to reawaken the passion for solving cases. In the energetic Aina from before, Ina knew full well, so she warned Mr. Curry, "Do not try to tempt me." A short while later, Hansim brought Ina to his mother's house to eat curry. Just trying one spoonful, Ina had to admit the curry really smelled like black bean paste. Just like that, both ate and chatted happily together. After calming down and feeling ready to face the public, Ina accepted the interview invitation from DBC station to talk about the 9-piece jigsaw serial case and analyze the killer's psychology. A long time afterwards, Hansim and the rookie arrived at a murder crime scene. As soon as they arrived, they saw the psychological profiling team, the team from the Seoul station. Perhaps because the chief felt uneasy, so he had them called in. Hansim went to ask the crime scene investigation team, asking if they had found anything yet. They said, temporarily based on observing the victim's body, they could deduce she died from excessive blood loss, and it seemed the wounds were stitched up after death. The estimated time of death is 2 nights ago. Looking at the pale face, it seems the killer intentionally drained all the body's blood. Hansim frowned and said, "She looks like she was turned into a specimen. Why would someone intentionally do it like this?" At this moment, Ina appeared from nowhere and replied, "Because they wanted to show others their completed masterpiece." The killer brushed her hair to their liking. They even applied makeup and dressed her in a beautiful dress, probably to soothe their loneliness and fight against their own inner emptiness, slowly building an illusionary image in their head. And at the moment of seeing the victim, the killer thought this was the perfect subject to execute that illusion. After striking, they probably wanted to show off their unique artwork, which is why they displayed it like this. It could also simply be wanting to humiliate the victim. Hansim was overjoyed seeing her return, so he immediately asked, "Does this body dumping location have any meaning to the killer?" Ina replied, "Yes it does, because the killer knows this place very well, and the killer is right around us." Finishing her words, Ina opened a small box from her pocket, then took out a puzzle piece, holding it up right in front of Hansim's face. The film has now come to an end here. See you again in other videos.